Welcome to SoundMindBeats podcast. We go live Tuesday, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, USA, every week. Please come and join us on TikTok. And in case you missed it, we're going to be uploading the full versions here on YouTube. Thank you for listening.
What is up, dude?
It's so crazy when people change their profile pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Whole new person.
Yeah, it totally is. I figured it's about time that I can have a face out there rather than... There it is.
There we go.
It's always good to hit the save button, right? It's like always hit record.
Yeah, if I shaved my beard, I'd look like a whole new person. You wouldn't even recognize me.
Yeah, dude. That was the one day I shaved, and I didn't even go 24 hours before I started to let it grow out. I think I told you that. Like my kids came home from school and thought there was an intruder in the house. You know, that normally like clean language, proper young ladies. You know, I saw the older girl, and she's like, "Holy shit!" And then she's like, I was like, yeah. I was like, I just wanted to see my face one more time.
It's crazy how quick it grows back, though, huh? If only that happened at the top of our heads.
Yeah, for sure.
So, gentlemen, how you been?
Been awesome.
Been good? How about you, Christian?
Oh, good. Nice to see you all.
Yeah, you as well, man.
Long time no see.
What has it been,
I've
like
seen
3 weeks?
I've seen that Brian did a live. You did, Brian, a couple of days alive, but when I've seen it, it was too late because you were already off it. And I haven't done a live, Rob, since you are off. So I haven't also done, I think, 1 or 2 times alive, but only for 1 hour. So I also dropped the ball there. Lots to do on my side.
I was getting the itch.
Yeah. So, but it's great to see that everyone is okay. So, and I really missed this talks on Tuesdays. I was hoping to get back along and catch up where we left. And beside that, all good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. I agree. It's time to get back to it. I had to take some time to myself, as you both know. And this time, the show must go on. This life,
Of course.
And I'm glad. Like, I actually been having the itch as well. I saw it. Actually, I joined that live Brian was on.
Yeah, that's one of those. I was like, I don't really like. I've been so busy with stuff. I was like, well, this is probably going to be really boring for a lot of people. It's not like super glamorous, sexy audio with my 5 easy tips. When you're my gold and orange clipper to make all of your bad music sound mediocrely 1 step better to bad. Like just doing cookie edits and workflow stuff. But yeah, man, it's like, again, you got the itch, you got to scratch it.
Yeah, I was laughing because you let that Rob person up. You're like, oh, this is the wrong Rob.
Yeah, and that was so funny because I just saw it and I was like, oh yeah, that's you. And then I was like, oh no, and everybody has like their their handle name or whatever you call it. Kids these days,
I could see it.
I also want to mention the stuff that Brian, if I'm joining your live, or Rob, if I will join your live from now on, and you see that I join and I, share the member heart and all stuff, but I don't say anything. That's because I'm saying, but it's not coming through. So for now, I also said hi on this live. Nobody said back. That's because I'm writing stuff on lives. People don't see what I'm writing. It's an issue that I have for 2 months now, and I didn't figure out what the problem is.
Interesting. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, shadow ban kind of thing or whatever. Yeah, who knows? Weird stuff.
You're out there talking like, praising Cubase or something like that. The avid police are coming in. They're like, we got to shut this down. How dare you not use only and all UA plugins?
So
Michael,
any new gear from anyone? Any like cool toys?
I heard the avid police are here.
yeah, I have some, a lot actually.
Of course you do. What'd you get, man?
I got Analog Rhythm MK2,
Okay.
drum machine.
Okay.
You know it? From
Uh-huh.
Electron.
Yeah.
The cool fact on it is that I took it because I want to have a drum machine that's analog. But here comes the fun part. You can bring in a sample, a kick or a snare or whatever, and overlay it with your analog kick. So basically, when you're building your kick, you don't need to go back in your DAW and EQ it and whatever and build a kick out of two kicks. You bring in the sample and you synthesize your own kick, and then you can mash it up in right there in the MK, the final kick, which
Nice,
is
nice.
mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's
And
super
it sounds awesome.
cool, man.
Yeah, and I also seen that Brian has the SSL controllers, so I got also all three of them. So the SSL UF1, UF8, and the UC1. And with the analog gear, with the Big Six, it complements so fine. It brings all these two worlds together, the digital one and the analog one. So the best you can get of both worlds in one, because there is nothing just positive on analog. There's nothing just wrong on digital, and the other way around. They both have, advantages and disadvantages. And I feel like this, I can bring the best out of the two worlds. And the last piece of gear I got was the this TMA2 from III Audio. It comes along with a it comes along with this piece of gear, which makes your thing wireless, but it streams in 44.1 kilohertz. So you have CD quality over wireless, and you have 5 milliseconds latency, so you can track and produce with the heads on. So you can do your synthesizer work and your drums and whatever, and not having to drag the cable. So you just plug and play. And if you're not using it for DAW, you can connect it over Bluetooth. You have here a switch. You switch it, and then you are in Bluetooth mode. And I can use it for calls like this and for Zoom calls and listening to music normally.
Nice, dude. Super cool.
Yeah, this is awesome.
But Mike, you got the controller too, right? The SSL.
I got the UC1. Honestly, it's like it's just been. I've had it since last year, end of last year, whatever. It's like game changing. I couldn't. I mean, not to like sell it or anything to anybody, but like it really did kind of transform my mixes. Just the way I EQ, whether it's in the box or out of the box, just EQing as a whole, like being able to boost really wide and sweep around and see how everything relates to each other like you would on a console, like frequency wise. And, I think one of the biggest benefits is like I'll mangle up something with EQ and like, I don't like looking at, like fat, like Pro Q, for example. I hate looking at the curves. Like me personally, I'm just terrible at it because I'm like, oh, that curve looks crazy. That's wrong. I don't care if it sounds good. I'm doing too much. It's like that, me being like, I'm doing too much. The stems were sent to me really good, and I overthink it. That's just me. So with the controller, I've always been an SSL channel person for my whole career. So with a controller, I can boost what 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 dB, whatever it is, and not actually see it. But the best part too is like, I mean, I guess technically Pro Q has like the automatic makeup gain, but I can adjust the output, of the channel strip as I'm EQing in real time, and that is like, it's better than automatic makeup gain because sometimes I want it a little bit lower, or sometimes I want it a little bit loud. Like I want to be able to customize it. So yeah, the UC1, it's like I don't want to say I don't know how I mixed before it because that's I mixed fine, but I mix a lot more efficiently now with it, and I couldn't imagine not having it. To me, it's like with analog gear. It's funny because I'm actually talking about new gear. I'm selling my gear. I sold my Summon mixer. I've got my Silver Bullet hardware up for sale. I'm getting rid of everything because nothing against hardware. Hardware is amazing. I just don't necessarily miss it. Like I think I'm really happy where my mixes are right now, and like I've been super busy lately. I've been doing 2 albums, and I have to get it done literally by like the end of the week. I'm doing Atmos for a lot of them, and like when it comes to like printing stems for like 18 songs to do an Atmos, and then have to actually like if I did it with just an analog mix chain or mix bus chain, I would never even get it done. Even with like Bounce Factory and I would never get it done because it's just there's not enough time. So personally, I'm getting rid of all my outboard gear. Anybody wants a silver bullet or an audio escape bus compressor, let me know for sale. But yeah, the UC1 is game changer for sure.
I heard one of the tracks, I think, of the project you're working on, you posted on Instagram. Dude, sounded killer.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I posted a couple of them. Yeah, I've been so busy. I've been doing a couple things. But everything I've posted over the last, I don't even know, this year pretty much has all been completely in the box. And, like I would keep my silver bullet static. I'd keep my SSL set, the Audioscape bus compressor set. I wouldn't touch them or adjust them. I just mix into it. And that was cool. And then like occasionally I would adjust the silver bullet, which I liked, but then the recalling, like I also have like, this is definitely a me problem, but like I've got an assistant who's doing like, or like starting to do stems for me, but he is not physically here. So he'll do them, we'll screen share, and then he'll do them at his place, like at night, and do that stuff and control my computer and set up Bounce Factory, whatever. But if I had analog and the settings changed, he'd have to physically be here.
Right.
And which was always fine. I mean, in the history of this business, that's always fine. But my mix room's in my house, and I'm, my assistant, he's awesome. He's great. He's a friend too, but I still don't, want anybody here all night. You know what I mean? It's just not possible. So like, it's just a very subjective opinion, and it's a me thing. But I'm getting rid of all the analog because I'm really happy with the in the box stuff. And like the plugins that have come out recently, even like in the last 6 months alone, have been like insane. I mean, like the P455 by, have you guys used this plugin at all? Man, I've been raving about this thing. Have you guys seen this plugin? It's by a company called Pulsar Modular, and they're pretty pricey, their plugins, but this one specifically is, I mean, I got it for the intro price. I think it's a couple $100. It's not the cheapest, but it basically emulates.
Looks like an API.
Yeah, like an API sidecar. And it's like, it's got a compressor and an EQ on it. I've only used a compressor once. It's just not my style. I like SSL, but EQ is really cool when I use it. But it sounds like, man, everybody in here, just go out and demo it. Like, I'm not affiliated at all. All you guys, like, especially you three, go demo the plugin from Pulsar Modular. It's mind blowing. It sounds insane. Like, it just sounds like all the characteristics you would get from summing. And like, I come from consoles. I worked on consoles early on. I've had summing mixes, the whole nine. It's crazy. And then that has been in my mix head since it came out. I didn't beta test or anything. I just bought it when it came out. And then the new mix head plugin from what is it, Make Believe Studios? You guys seen that one? The one that came out?
Mm-mm.
No.
Man, really? It's too bad Brandon isn't there. You're really beta testing it. This is it emulates. If you guys haven't heard of this, you're about to like probably go buy it now. So it emulates the SPL like tape head or whatever it is. But the whole thing with this, let me just change it up quick. So this is like, everybody's like, what is Serban use? What is Serban use? What is Serban use? So this is like the only piece of, it's not technically hardware. The hardware is hardware, but it's digitally, like it connects via AES. So technically it's all digital, And this was like the only piece of hardware that Serban uses, and he got behind it. And they basically came out with the plugin, and this is like his preset, which I don't actually use a whole lot. But that aside, it's just this subtle like tape saturation box that SPL made like years, like, a couple decades ago, whatever. And I guess Serban used it and everything, and he got behind it. And it's subtle, but it sounds really, really good. My point is like, the plugins that are out now are so freaking good.
Yeah.
And like the mix head combined with the P455, like I don't know, man. I'm getting everything that I want in the box, and it's just, we're at a really good point in audio where the hardware is still great, but the plugins are really good. So it's like, anyway, I'll stop blabbering on about this.
I think you're right. I mean, I think analog gear is really, really important in the recording process. But when it comes to mixing, it's just pick your poison kind of thing. Like, it's just as good. So I'm with you.
Yeah, it's interesting that all of these plugs that are coming out that are finally, one, they're affordable, they're CPU efficient,
Totally.
I still haven't found anything that's really new that isn't emulating something old. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, yeah, it's like emulating like a piece of 90s SPL gear, or like, oh, this is the old BSS like 501 or something like that. You know, it's like stuff that you just used to live in racks. I don't really, so I'm not that creative of an individual. I don't know what the new like sonic type of gear, maybe dare I say something like the Soothes,
It's something
or
like that. Yeah.
yeah, you know, I don't see those as like, you know, and I'm not gonna ever use the term game changer unless I'm like sort of making fun of something. But yeah, like those are cool dynamic EQs, you know, that type of thing. That's cool. But yeah, I still haven't seen anything that's really new coming out that it's revolutionary, like a new piece of gear, like something that would be like going from analog to digital. You know, I don't know if we're at the point yet that we're going to have some type of really radical jump like that. It's much
I,
more incremental.
yeah. I feel like a lot of like I don't think we're gonna see like, and I could be wrong. I'm not a developer, but I feel like for lack of a better term, the game changer stuff.
Right.
It's it's like because we mastered clean, right? We can get pristine audio. That's been around for a while. I think the game changer stuff is like a Soothe or a, and I'm hit or miss on AI stuff. I don't want to like get into that because I mean I think there's a time and a place for that kind of thing, like a Bloom, whatever. But like, I think the new things that's going to be like, you know, the new 1176. It's not going to be a compressor. It's not going to be like, you know what to me is like an amazing piece of software that has been around for a minute. Have you guys used this the DSM let me pull it up really quick. It's like the DSM Pro Audio DSM, like it's this thing right here. It's been around for a minute. It's this plugin right here. It's part of the plugin, the plugin Alliance bundle, but it's made by the guy who created. Oh my god, I should know his name. This is really bad of me. But he basically was like the original inventor of the SSL bus compressor. He used to work for SSL, and then he did all of the when Oxford was doing like the Oxford like the old digital console and all those plugins. He created this, and basically what this does is like it captures the spectrum of a sound or a mix, and it compresses based on that spectrum. So like you can like, it's almost like match EQ, but it's not an EQ, it's a compressor. But it also is really nice for like de-essing or like mastering if you're compressing. So it's like, it's hard to explain, but I think it's plugins like this are what's going to be like the new thing. Like, cause we don't need 1126. We don't need new single band compressors. Like we've got those. And if you can't use what we have, it's not the gear that's the problem. It's probably the person who just needs to get in more. You know what I mean?
They say it ain't the bat, it's the batter.
Right.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
I think that kind of stuff, and that's really, it's not necessarily probably designed to be a creative tool. You know, it's a workflow tool. It's a way of economizing, you know, effort that you might have had to do like 10 different tricks, you know, in the past to get the outcome that plug does, and with its internal algorithms and that kind of thing. You know, I think that's the stuff for sure is helpful. That allows you, I think, to stay more focused on being creative and being, you know, in the moment with the music and with the mix. So you don't have to sit there and be like, okay, I was totally in the zone and now I've got to stop everything and I've got to tweak this thing and add it to that and, you know, have like 17 layers to fix something. You know, I think that really sort of throws off, you know, your mojo for a while.
What's interesting is like when I did this, I think I told you guys a while ago, I did this masterclass with Manny American in Dubai like earlier in the year, and like the big topic of that, the big part of it was like how to stay in the right brain versus left brain. So it's like how to stay in that creative brain, right? Like on the creative side of your brain, so that you're constantly thinking creatively. And I think, like to your point, like the tools that we're getting, they're really technical tools, but they're time savers. right? Like like I can do what Soothe does if I sat there with an EQ and swept or whatever, like found what I didn't, or multiband, whatever. But like I can also do it really quick with Soothe, and then the more we use them, the more I'm like I know Soothe, I know exactly how to get what I want out of it, and that just keeps us in that right brain creative mode where we're not like, where are the resonances? Like, I'm sorry, I hate that. I hate sweeping for resonances. I hate that. I hate fixing. I do it, but I hate it. So like, it's how do you stay in that creative mindset where I can just turn EQs and make it sound good and move on? I think that's what the tools are kind of becoming, I guess, in a way. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm trying to, at least.
I've actually seen a lot of guys in the live world that are implementing Soothe almost to a degree that I think it's more helpful than in the recording side. I mean, I think Soothe on a track can be fine if very, very lightly applied. I think it can also be super destructive because people just throw it on there that frankly don't know what it does or why it does what it does, and they're just guessing. But on the live side, it certainly helps, especially when you're doing with a lot of instruments. You're doing a lot of like live strings and things like that, where I don't always want to EQ all of the bow sound out. But those type of shows, a lot of times you're using like clip-on DPAs that are that far from the bridge, and the human ear doesn't listen to, let's say, a violin that far away, so it can be pretty shrill, but the Soothe on that kind of stuff actually helps to tame it without completely killing it, which is always nice.
I think the solid state logic controllers are one of the best controllers out there. I think the biggest benefit they are keeping you with your eyes and making your ears more active than your eyes, because you're more concentrated on the sound and your head is not watching the waveforms and stuff like that, and you're manipulating it with your ears and not with your eyes, because eyes can also give you a fake feeling that you hear something that's not probably there. At least happened to me. And secondly, regarding the analog, what you said, Michael, I agree to disagree regarding the outboard gear. So I think, can you do a good mix or awesome mix only digital? Of course you can. I think the only reason why you get analog gear in the mixing process is because you want to set aside your type of mixing. You want to be unique in your sound, because that's the uniqueness of analog, and you cannot emulate that. Not even two CLA, 2A are the same, from the same country, from the same company. So they will have a different sound no matter what. They will bring that warmth. So for example, let's take the Big Six and the Pearl compression. Trust me, I did a demo and I put that Pearl compression on it that also Rob uses on his tracks. My God, I can't replicate that. It sounds like a beast. It sounds full, it sounds warm, it just makes the track ready, in my opinion. This is my humble opinion, yeah? So
yeah, of course.
This is what I think that analog brings. It brings uniqueness in your mixing. So if you want to be a part of the rest of the world, that's why you bring hardware gear in it. That doesn't mean a mix cannot be finished just using digital. It's just if you prefer to be unique in your sound. That's it.
Yeah, it's very subjective. Like I think everybody has to find a way to get the sound that they're after. If that means hardware, then that's why we have these options. You know what I mean? It's a great time to be in audio. I think it's good to not have to use analog at that, because there's a point where like you only had 211.6s in the room, so you're like, okay, I don't know, you're trapped in that, and like that sucks. So I think we're in a good point in time where, and even with plugins, like again, like I totally respect your opinion, because I think like at the end of the day, everybody's subjective opinion is what matters the most to them, because like I agree completely with what you're saying. Like analog definitely has a sound. For me, like I'm able to get a sound that I like in the box, and I've never once been like, man, I wish I had analog for this. And when I do say that, I'll buy analog gear again. You know what I'm saying? Or I'll rent it.
You're gonna buy it again, I guarantee it. somewhere down the line, you'll be like,
you know what? It's like a
got that
couple of
itch.
days. You know, it's like I'm over this. I'm done. But then, like, I bought this Silver Bullet last year because I was like, this is what's missing. And then I used it for a year, and I'm like, I haven't turned it on in 5 years. I don't miss it at all. And is it unique? 100%. It doesn't sound anything like the plugin. The hardware Silver Bullet is night and day better than the plug-in Silver Bullet. But I don't use the plug-in Silver Bullet, so I don't even want to use it. You know what I mean? So it's unique for sure, but the sound that I get personally with my mix bus is better than the sound I got with hardware. So but subjective, right? Like it's not this. And also, like, everybody in this chat, in this video, we can all use the exact same mix bus chain, the exact same mix, and get completely different results. So I think it's all about, like, what you're comfortable with. But all that being said, I agree with what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I agree with it. I just think ultimately it comes down to, personal preference. I don't think I sound like everybody else because I use plugins. I think
It's definitely a personal
Why it
preference,
works.
and it's always about us. It's about our what we like.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, when you stream the song, nobody will care if you use analog gear on it, or they will say that's definitely the analog stuff in there, is not the plugin. Nobody will ever care about that. That's
No,
something, I don't know, Rob cares, I care about my stuff, Brian cares about his gear, but at the end of the day, the final user, you consuming the music, will not care. If the composition is right, if the production is good, if the recording was great, good mixing, good mastering, and they can enjoy the track, that's all that matters. And it's sadly because you put so much time and effort in all the production, mixing and mastering, but what I found out personally is that the thing that really matters, and that's the hardcore of each production that comes out and sees the light of Spotify, is the composition. If the composition is not what it should be, there you go. You can have the best kick, the custom kick. Nobody will care that you have a custom kick made. If it's not moving anything emotionally inside, it's done.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think too that like Mike's, I think correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but your premise is mainly recall, and I totally understand that. Like that's the reason why you're moving away from it. Yeah.
yeah, but at the end of the day, like, nothing. Yes, recall is a big part of it, but if I didn't feel like I was able to get the quality that I wanted, recall comes. Everything always comes second to, like you were saying, the emotion, right? Like, I don't give a shit about. At the end of the day, recall. Like, if my mixes suck but I'm like, I gotta recall these and I have to make Admiral stems, does it really matter about any of that stuff in the end? Everything else is really an afterthought. So, like, it to me, I have to be able to get out, like, stay in that right brain and get out what I want emotionally from the mix, and be able to say, like, this is exactly how I want it to sound. Not there isn't a single piece of plugin or hardware that would make me do anything different. As long as I can get that, then I can also go, okay, great. And now I have to recall, and I have to, make stems for Atmos, and I have to deliver an 18-song album by the end of the week, and we just got it approved, and I have to do, 18 mix stems and alts, and, like, that's 3 days of work right there with analog. So, like, there's a big part of that, but I also think too, like, so Sonic's first always, but there's also that unfortunate reality too from the business perspective when there are these expectations from like labels, like, can you turn this around yesterday? Can you do this? We're adding one more song. Like, I'm dealing with this now. It's like, we're adding one more song to the album that was due last week, that we pushed back a week. We get the song, we turn the vocal on 3 of the songs. Can we do this? We need that more stems. And it's like, there's no physical time to do that. That's not always the case, but because I'm confident in the sound in the box, and I don't even think about analog. I don't miss it at all. There's all the benefits that come along with working in the box. Like, yeah, I can take on more work now. I can do stems overnight. I can do an entire 18-song project, get stems overnight because I'm doing it offline, and deliver and make clients happy and triple my workload for the year. Like, there's all these things that come into factor, right? So, like, but ultimately I can do all that because I'm personally feel like I don't miss analog. I don't think I'm not unique because I don't use analog. I'm not worried about that. I'm very, very happy with where I'm at, and I think I can get even more creative working in the box. I'm not like, man, I really miss the sound of the Silver Bullet. If I did, I'll just use it. You know what I mean?
You're probably in the majority, actually, with, staying 100% in the box. I would imagine across the full spectrum of everything, at least on the mixing side. I mean, from the music side to TV to film to any commercial product, like probably a lot more people are in the box, than even a hybrid type of setup. I mean, I know that even for me, like, with the couple like analog pieces that I have, like the Bus Plus and the Fusion, the Neve Summer, I use a lot of that stuff, even not so much on a mix. Like the last drum track thing I did, I ran every track through its own channel on the Neve summing box, just to basically recut those, the drums through that, just to get that sort of color and a little bit of extra weight on the final tracks that I shipped off to the guy that was mixing it. So that's a tool there. But yeah, I'm probably using my stuff less and less on an overall mix, but for individual elements, most certainly that's I'm still employing that. We're talking about like the gear stuff as far as like maybe new advancements. Have you guys used any of like the Lawton like drum mics that are out there? Yeah, man, they like that's a type of technology. They sound great, and they do like an amazing job of rejecting ambient sound around them. I was thinking like, what's something that's you know, but like we sort of look at on the mixing side, but on the tracking side, I think there's been some pretty cool microphone advancement that's come out. That's certainly something. I think there's a lot more in the multi-pattern type microphones that are out and available. That's always the thing. It's like, well, I want to try to capture like this great vocal, but half of that is rejecting the trash that's surrounding the space that you're recording in. Especially if you got to do anything remote, like Rob, I was out in Vegas and I was doing a bunch of voiceover stuff like in a hotel room, and it was like, I wish that I would have had something that was with me that, like, in its design, helps in that rejection kind of thing, and making like makeshift, vocal booth to cut somebody's commercial, But Tom, dudes.
Yep.
Like guys, like you guys been hanging out down in the lower court.
Welcome in an hour later.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Didn't want to interrupt.
You're good, buddy.
I was just doing some work and changing some stuff, some panels, and like Christian was like, "Oh, are you gonna get into live?" It's okay, yeah. I'm gonna run in 1 hour, but I'm gonna be here at least 1 hour. How are you guys, by the way?
Doing good. Mike came in here and just started attacking us all and said, "You don't need analog gear."
Oh, this is the subject for today. You don't need
I'm in the wrong live stream right now.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I just spent money on some analog gear.
Right.
It's still really good, I swear. I love analog gear.
Though, like
I'm like this villain.
I get it though, Mike. I get like the recall thing because like that's huge for me.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough where I just work with my artists and we have a workflow that works together. So I'm able to, pump out music pretty quick. But if I had jobs that were constantly wanting to revisit mixes, it would be a nightmare on me. It'd be an absolute nightmare. So
I'm not saying analog sucks by any means. I came up hybrid, but like I love analog stuff. It hurt. Like I could have sold this Silver Bullet like 6 months ago, and I'm like, I can't do it. Can't do it. And now I'm like, all right, well, I should probably just do it because I don't like anything collecting dust. To me, that's a waste. So it's like whatever. But I'm not against it. I don't like. It's just a personal thing. Like it comes down to everything I said already. But
Well,
buy
that
it.
took me a long time to even decide what piece of equipment I wanted to add to the studio. Was I was looking at, and not that I have the budget for it, but I was looking at the SSL Origin. I was also an SSL Origin,
That's cool.
and but I was like the recallability. I'm just like, it's cool to have all the faders and stuff like that. And then I started looking at API the box, a little bit closer to a budget type thing. That would but would have faders again, but the whole recallability thing. I ended up going with, and I sent Rob a picture. I ended up going with a Neve 1073 OPX because you can store the settings with the remote software, and then you can store that with your sessions, with all your sessions. So, but yeah, that was years of like trying to figure out what to do because of that recallability. So.
Yeah, I think it's easy too for a lot of stuff that when you're talking about major capital expenditures, which is what a box or anything similar to that it's like it's not like everything is expensive, of course, but there's a big difference in like I'm gonna buy this 2-channel EQ for a couple grand, or I'm gonna jump to $17,000 before you get a patch bay and cabling, that has to be, drop shipped to your place in a crate type of a deal. And then, going beyond that, that's like, I think we all look at that and be like, no, dude, I'd love to get an Origin. Like, I don't think that the volume of tracking that I'm doing, which I do a lot of tracking, but I don't think that number one, that's going to bring, like it used to be, what kind of a console's in the studio? Like, I don't think that that's a piece of gear for me that's going to bring more people in. And like I already have enough, like high-end mic pre's and enough choices to do stuff. But it'd be awesome to have it, though. I can tell you, like I've looked at it a ton of times. You'd be like, oh. Or what's the other one that you can pop all the 500 modules in? The other SSL that's whatever that one is, like
duality, right? Yeah.
Not the duality. It's smaller than the
It's
Origin.
smaller. It's the step before the Origin.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're. I was looking at that one as well.
Yeah, it has no automation or anything like that. And it's like sit there and look at it, and it's like I know that the sonic color coming in,
right,
or mixing through it, for stems or what have you, like that'll all be great. But man, that's a lot of bread.
Yeah.
When you look at that kind of stuff and be like, okay, if I am gonna dip my toe into this analog thing, man, it really needs to be kind of a special piece of gear, in my opinion. A lot of people just like, oh, I just bought this thing, like, and then it sits there, and you end up not using it. But it's even, it's tougher these days, especially without the bigger, high-end audio stores that are around. I've got a couple places local in the DC area where you might be able to go and see a piece of gear, but unless you can go to Vintage King, if you're in Nashville, LA, Detroit, or something like that, or a few other places that you could put your hands on a high-end piece of gear, or listen to a great set of speakers. A lot of it is like, I'm not ashamed to say, like I've certainly bought stuff because other people had it, and like the online demos sounded good, and it sort of met like a requirement that I was looking for. But yeah, and I think we all need to put up, pump our brakes on, the big purchases.
Well, I want to show you guys something real quick. Hang on.
Meanwhile, if I may joke, so if you want plugins with recall function, I'm more than happy to exchange my plugins with the real gear.
Oh, that's the yeah, dude. What is that? That's the 1176 with the EQ. What's the?
This is the LA4.
Yeah. Sorry, the elephant. That's
with the EQ. Now, so my mentor, his basement flooded and he had a bunch of gear just kind of in racks. This was in a rack. And he says, you know what? He goes, I'm kind of done with all this stuff. He goes, get ready to start receiving gear. And so this was the first piece
Give him
That's
my
good.
number,
he
dude.
gave me.
Yeah.
So
It's LA4. I've seen a few of those out there. That's a pretty rare piece.
Yeah, I've never used that one before. That's cool.
Who actually makes that?
I've never even seen
Yuri.
that.
That was a Yuri. Yeah.
Yeah.
LA4.
Okay.
that's a new piece of gear along with the new Neve. So
Yeah, I've seen a few that are out there that are like like there's a few versions of the Stereo 2A
yep.
that sort of float around. Yeah, but that's a cool piece for sure. At least it's like a coffee table book. I might not read it, but it looks really interesting.
I'm not sure if it's on our topic for today, but one thing that makes me busy nowadays is finding a good studio desk. And I found a company called Buso Audio. They are based, I think, in Netherlands, which makes something similar to what I wish for my studio. But if anyone has an opinion or want to discuss about it today, I'm more than happy to. I'm looking for good something that I can embed my gear on it, like you have Brian, so something to put my gear in it, but also to have like a tray to have your controller. So to be a mixture between a mixing desk and a producer desk. It's right in between.
Man, you already probably know my horror story with my desk. And I've already like trashed on Danger Fox probably enough. Those guys have some bruises at this point in time. But that style that is relatively flat, sort of mastering style with a tray for controllers. I think Argosy makes something like that. I know Sterling Modular does. They've got like the Plan B, Plan D, Plan C. Those are they're not cheap.
Yeah, the Sterlings are really nice, but they're really expensive too.
Yeah. I've seen the Buso stuff before. I think
what does expensive mean? Because also Buso for 3,500.
Oh,
it's not cheap. So.
No. I mean, yeah. If you're looking at that, then that kind of price, then yeah.
Well, I'm not looking at that price. I'm actually looking for much cheaper, but I'm looking for something that fits. So
you're like, well, for that price, I can buy this piece of gear.
Yeah. I mean, you might also try to see if you could find somebody that would fabricate, what you were looking for.
It's much more, I end up much more expensive than I would buy it straight.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure as far as like how the European market is with that type of stuff. I mean, if you could get a Sterling or Argosy, I think those are kind of like the big brands, at least here in the States.
Okay.
I don't know how that's.
I'm not sure if are they shipping overseas as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure they would, but when you're talking about adding that level of freight. Unless they already have like European distribution where they've got a bunch of stuff that gets drop shipped there.
If you can drop me some links, I would appreciate it, Brian.
Of course.
So I'm just checking the market to make the best decision. Currently, the best I found for what I need or for what I'm looking for is from Buso. So. And yeah, it's a mixture of a mixing desk combined with mastering desk combined with the producer. So you also have the tray, you also have the place to like a flat area where to put your mixers, but also like going up a little bit, so you can also put some racks in it.
Yeah, I my guess is if you could get the Sterling stuff, in Europe, at least from what I've seen. Again, I'm no desk expert, but that. From my knowledge, that has everything that you're looking for. It isn't like who are the guys that make the bamboo stuff? It's a really steep angle on a lot of that. There's some company that's out there, and they make a lot of like products out of bamboo. Again, not cheap, but I've looked at that, and it's like it makes things really tall. Then you start, that's why I really went with a flat, low profile thing.
Yeah.
Just try to not. to minimize any reflections
You do
and
jam racks.
yeah, that's who it is. Jam racks. Yeah.
Those are actually
But
kind of, I like
yeah,
them.
I mean they're cool. They're really well built. I've put my hands on a few of them. One that was in a actually I used at a shop here in DC. But yeah, it's weird angles, But there's a lot of that sort of guitar centered trash that's out there as well. That you're better off saving your money. I mean,
Gator frameworks.
yeah, dude, we've all been there. It's like you bought something and it was like cool, and it's like worse than IKEA. Where it's like as long as you don't move it, you'll be fine. But the moment you move it, it's like particle board and there's weird cam locks that they never totally align, and
Yep.
you put something in the rack and you could see it starting to bow. It's like
Exactly. The
I
steel vibrates.
I bought stuff that the holes weren't like. I had to drill the holes.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh, they didn't actually drill all the holes. So let me.
What?
Yeah.
or it's like misaligned or something like that.
I'm like, oh, it's missing 2 holes. All right, let me just drill it. I guess. I mean, it's fix it yourself, but like, that probably shouldn't happen.
Right. It's like you're not supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, there should be.
It's just half of a design. It's just half of a design. The rest is custom. You can drill whatever you want.
That's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to end up building, I'm obviously going to be doing a new studio here soon. But I think I'm going to build my desk. Like just looking around, I can't find anything either because I'm in the same boat as you, Christian. I was like, I need it for like multiple applications.
Exactly.
And then a big thing for me is I want to stand up. I want to be able to stand up. So I'm going to put it on like some sort of automated like hydraulic system that'll move it up and down. Yeah.
Mine's so I mean, I don't have any racks in mine, but I end up getting like a stand up desk that goes up or like Amazon. Like it was complete opposite of an audio desk, but like for my setup, it's like
Mike doesn't have any analog gear anymore.
that's what I'm saying. I don't even have like it's literally
Mike's a rebel.
Yeah.
it's literally like this desk over here. Well, I do, I just don't use it. But it's like this thing over here, and it it goes up and down. But it's nice because it stays out of the way, and my speakers are back there, so I don't have to deal with it.
How often do you go up and down?
Never, but
I was good. I knew it.
But he's got the option. If he feels like it, he's got it.
it was like a cool concept, and then I did it, and I was like, oh wait, and now I'm 9 inches above my speakers. Real smart. But so the only time I will do it, I will say, so I've got like my Oratones on here that I listen to like really low, and if I raise it up, I can just like do my little balance stuff on there, and I don't care if these are. I treat my Oratones like computer speakers, so I'm not like. It's not that deep for me. Like I just listen back, and if it sounds like a record, cool. If not, whatever. So sometimes I'll raise it up and listen to my Oratones with that, and that's a nice like change in perspective. But I'm talking about like twice a month, if I remember. That kind of thing.
There's an option that you can do that's a lot less involved, and I've seen a couple guys that wanted the stand-up desk, but you're talking about hydraulics and stuff. Is like you could get a regular commercial desk, a Sterling, whatever, and elevate it underneath to the point, like a platform, to the point that it's comfortable for you standing up. And then you also just have a hydraulic chair that sits high enough that you could be in that spot, seated in the mix position. And if you want to stand, you're in the same position without having to deal with like electronics and hydraulics and that kind of stuff.
And what
It might
do you do with
change where the,
and what do you do with your speakers?
well, you just keep them the same. Your seated position is the same as your standing as far as like where your head is. Yeah, if you just get like
it's the chair that's moving.
A taller chair, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even like Rock and Sock, the company that makes drum thrones. They also make like mixed chairs and stools and all kinds of stuff. Like you'll see them in studios for upright bass players that almost are standing, but they just want to sit there, sit their rump just a little bit on the edge, and you can get some different things. That's a lot easier than trying to build a desk with hydraulics, and then you have to like factor in cabling and all that other stuff. But yeah, if you just want to stand, and it's kind of nice to just stand in the spot where you
That would
sit.
you put it all together and your cables are just
Yeah. Then yeah, it's like you raise it up and it pinches the cable and everything
Yep.
goes. Beep.
Yeah.
You get like horror stories like.
The other problem is I have Atmos in here, so it's like it's just so much more of a headache too. I guess I would have to do the whole thing up, but it's it's
your ceiling would have to raise all that
the
kind of
ceiling would have to
Right.
raise because I mean it's already high enough, thankfully, but like everything would have to. It's just gonna happen, and it's not even worth thinking about it. Getting a headache.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense to just do it with the chair
Yeah.
rather than the desk. That makes a lot more sense. For me, it's like, dude, actually, I'm going to really think about that because, like, I mean, my main premise is I do, like, a lot of stuff athletically outside of, the studio. And, like, I don't know how you guys do it, man. It just destroys, like, your mid-back posterior muscles and hip flexors, just sitting down all day, just things get super tight and like I feel it, and so, for me being able to stand way more than sit, like makes sense. Like
there's one guy on here who actually who can put his exercise bike like up against his mixed desk.
Oh, Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew, that's who it is.
Yeah, Chapman. Yeah, he's up a little north of me, like just outside of Baltimore. I was like, hey man, dude, you multitask. He's out there doing like those Zwift, online bike races while you're getting a mix done.
it's an epic, man. That's my cup of tea right there.
Man, I tell you that I don't know if I've ever just shown you that. Like, this is my mix chair.
That
It's
makes
like
way more sense.
An old drum stool. I was really feeling what you were talking about, like in the back of Sorry about that. Putting this oh.
His drum phone fell over.
Yeah. No, it's like, I've fallen, I can't get up. It was like just, doing stuff that to my back, just sitting in a normal chair. And then, just thinking about like posture. And again, my daughter came in, she's like, God, you slouch really bad, Dad. And I'm like, you shut your mouth. But no, I was just kidding. But it's like, sitting on the drum stool, has made me focus because, man, it's really easy to slouch. But like, about probably 5 months in now, like my posture is way better.
Yeah.
And I feel it, it's like pull your shoulders back, all those healthy things. I mean, these are like, all the ergonomics of mixing, and like you'll get fatigued. And I know that, especially in the box, I mean, there's still dudes with carpal tunnel, and like if you're on a track ball or things like that, and you start like you're trying to mix, and like you get like the old crypt keeper hand at the end of the day, and you're like, like little things to look out. But it's also like when you're building any of your workspace, like it not only does it need to do the job, but it shouldn't like break your body at the same time. Whether it's like short term or long term, we got to look out. And then your neck, when you're looking like this the whole time. And I know guys that work on Ravens, and they're like this. It's always, this is like their mix position, And I'm like, dude, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I mean, to get like nerdy about the body, like, sitting down, we're demobilizing all of our stabilizer muscles, your quadratus lumborum, your psoas muscle, your transverse abdominis, your rectus abdominis. Like all of these get demobilized. What takes the shoulders and the neck, the wrist, you have nothing to stabilize yourself. It takes a toll over time, especially if you're doing it hours on end. If you're stressed, if you got pressure, you'll tense up even more. We're causing double the damage at this point. It's like what you're doing, Brian, sitting on that chair with no back support,
right,
is so smart because you're forcing yourself to stabilize your upper torso now. Like that's what that chair will make you do. Like you can't lean back,
right?
And so like your core is going to keep you stabilized, and it just makes more sense to me to do things like that. I spent like $700 on this chair, but give me my money back. It made me worse, dude. And so like doing things like that make way more sense to me. And then standing up, just being able to move around, and not just be locked in this position, and
I used to work with like those Herman Miller chairs, and they're great. But yeah, it's just I don't know if I mean, the body wasn't built to sit. Yeah, I mean they're way better than a lot of really cheap choices that maybe are built to look good but are not ergonomic. But yeah, I mean at the end of the day, like we're not meant to sit. As far as like how your bone structure is designed. And even like when I do a lot like live stuff, like man, I'll have a stool every now and then, but man, and Isaac, I know you do like front of house stuff as well. Like, man, I don't
Mostly
sit.
stand.
I just stand. I mean, my feet feel kind of trashed at the end of the day, but yeah, like I'd rather stand, and I feel like I'm more engaged.
Yep. You feel more into it when you're mixing.
And you're not like doing this kind of thing. Like I can just step and move forward, and rather than having to lean forward and grab something, I simply move my feet and then naturally reach for it. It's like we do all these weird things, especially as a drummer. And I know if anybody else is like plays any other instruments, like piano players, guitar players, and I know so many violin and viola players that have neck issues from this. I mean, a ton of them have had issues that way. And if you're not careful and like actively thinking about, good motion, that can mess you up. But I mean, think about like this from a mixing perspective. If like you mess up your neck and you're like this all the time,
All your mixes.
then it's probably not gonna like totally trash stuff, but your perspective is gonna change.
Totally,
100%.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
it's like you have to balance your mix with the 5% penning.
Yeah, totally. It's like even the Trinoff, like I got to put the mic like that.
So true. Yeah, I produced 3 records yesterday, and I caught myself at the end of the third one, and the way I was like crunched up at the piano, and I just felt it in like my forearms, and like it's a weird thing. It's like when you get into the flow state, all of those things go out the window. I'm not thinking about posture. I'm not thinking about none of that. I'm locked in, And then when I finally fell out of the flow state and I just felt myself, I'm like, it's like, I got to go stretch and like move my body, and I'll go into my gym and, get my thoracic extension to move and, mess around my mid back posterior muscles. But like I felt it like yesterday, and I do a lot of like mobility work and, practicing moving my body, and it still happens to me. So anybody that is doing it and then not like working on fixing their self and their posture and whatnot, like you're going to be in for a world of hurt eventually.
Yeah. And that's like nothing takes you out of a creative headspace than some weird little neck tweak or, for me, like, drumming, like, I've had a couple like elbow issues, and it's like, you're just playing and playing and like you're in the zone. And I've like probably the past 20 years, I've really sort of reset how I position things to be as close and as comfortable with the least amount of energy required to get from one surface to the other. But like when those little things happen, and like I'll feel like a little elbow twinge or, something in the wrist or, my neck if I'm doing it, or you're really kind of getting into it and you're hunching over. It's like that like instantly snaps you out. And then I start thinking about that rather than thinking about like creating in the moment or, same thing goes with like mixings. If you're having, I know like especially with you have ENT stuff and got in boxing, I got punched in the jaw, and it was like it had my ears messed up for a couple weeks.
Wow.
And that's just something you're just trying to fight through it, and a little occupational hazard. So if you mix, don't get punched in the face. Try to avoid that. There's positive life lessons for getting punched in the face.
There is, dude. There totally is.
Yeah, it's like I had a conversation with somebody the other day. I do have like a theory about that, and like there's probably 2 camps of people in the modern world: those that have been punched in the face, and those that have not. And generally, those that have been punched in the face at some point in their life are more polite, hospitable, agreeable.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
looking to work towards positive outcomes and
Yeah.
win-win negotiations. And somebody that's never been slapped in the mouth, tends to run their mouth.
Yeah.
It
So
should have happened when you're a kid, but sometimes it happens when they're adults. And yeah, it's like
That's funny.
yeah.
I've seen some tour managers that are like that. They just like talk to people like absolute dog shit.
Oh,
And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, who are you talking to?
No, hold on, man.
Yeah, it's like, man, it's like you're coming at me with the wrong tone. Stab you in the face with a soldering iron. There's weird producers and stuff that are like that too. Like it's just it's odd, even in our industry. I mean, we're totally diving away from gear, but yeah, man, like you want to keep jobs all the time and be as hospitable and client focused as possible. Man, you work with some people that are just, dare I say, assholes.
Yeah.
And you're only an asshole because you have the budget. But if we're alone, like you're gonna get your face smashed.
Yeah, 100.
It's like, man,
Not like I know we all have stories, but I got one dude that sticks out, just what you're saying, and he treated me like freaking hell. And when that job was done, it's done and never going back. I don't care how much money you offer me. Like you said, if we were locked in a room, this would be a different conversation, but we're that didn't happen. But he came back to me like 2 years later, and I was like, yeah, I'm not working with you anymore. He was confused, and he said, you're a jerk, dude. You don't treat me with respect.
I feel like
So
in my experience, it's always like the artists that are like the biggest artists. There, of course, there are some, but in my experience working with some of them, like they're usually cool. It's always like the artists that are like, or producers or whoever that are like, maybe like just signed a deal or like aren't quite there yet, but they're close. They're not starting, but they're not like A-list, but they're like kind of there, and they're the ones that are like. In my experience, they've always been like the hardest to work with. That expect the most. It's like the biggest artists a lot of times are like actually really cool, like really chill. So not all of them. I'm not speaking for just generally though. Like I feel like it's always the ones that are like they think they're bigger than they are, and they're like, and they have this expectation like everybody owes everything to me, and I'm this big artist. And like okay,
a lot of times they don't know. It's like I can understand the anxiety of the position that they're in. You've been working for this thing for so long and you're so close and it feels like everything is on the line,
right?
Which maybe in that moment, career wise, it kind of is. But, I think a lot of times that level of pressure, it breaks some people. Then, and I'm not here to like unwind your past trauma or whatever, but like, go touch some grass or something like that. But, you'll find people that are like, and you're absolutely right. It's usually not well-established artists. I mean, there's always those stories of some well-established artists. Like, I waited until 3 a.m. for a very, very, very well-established artist to never show up for a vocal session, and everybody was just like, oh, and she was not nearly as big as she is now, but it was like even then, oh, you don't want, gonna get mad and don't say anything, and make sure that all the studio is the right type of scent and all this other kind of nonsense. But then you find people that are, there, but most part, like the high end people that I've ever interfaced with, like they were like, oh yeah, cool. Oh, you got headphones for me? That's great. Yeah, whatever you want. Like, you want me to sing it this way? Great. It's like,
can I say something on that? I actually had a session yesterday where we had a scheduled time to do it. If I can give any advice to anybody watching, if you schedule a session, please keep your time.
Yeah.
Please, because what we do as audio engineers is we not only do we get the space ready and all that kind of stuff, we get ourselves mentally ready, we prepare the entire thing, all that kind of stuff, and to have everything set up and then not show up to your session, man.
So you bill people for the day. Don't do this hour shit.
Yeah.
I've got a day rate. I don't have an hour rate.
Yeah. This young man, and it was his first time ever being in the studio, so I actually got to sit down with him and just kind of share with him, hey, whenever you schedule a studio time, make sure you show up, because show up on time. This is your time slot. And he was kind of upset because I said, well, this is what I had you slotted for, and we're done. And he's like, but I'm not done. I was like,
You are now.
you are now. Like, this is what I had slotted for you. I mean, I have things in my schedule. That's why I have a schedule.
And you might have other people that are slotted for later in the day. It's like, my world doesn't revolve around you unless you pay me for my world to revolve around you.
Right.
The 4-hour block that you booked, and you probably tried to negotiate the rate way down. That's all. I think you see a lot of that, and for any of the younger engineers out there, does like I will say don't go through that, but it's probably the best that you do go through it, so you learn those lessons and you learn how to still survive in the business, and you learn how to behave and how not to behave. But yeah, it's always the ones that like they want to pay you the very least possible, that show up the most underprepared and with material that like honestly you give a shit about. It's like,
Yep.
like I'm gonna do the best job that I possibly can, as always, especially if you're paying me.
Right.
But yeah, you hear stuff. I mean, God, I don't know how many projects we've all probably worked on. You're like, well, I'll do the best I can, but it's not going anywhere.
I gotta get on a call. I gotta run. I don't want to be rude. So,
All right, appreciate you, buddy.
back
Have a
to
good one.
analog talk.
Gear.
I think
I'm gonna leave you
for
guys.
me,
Sorry for interrupting, but they just called me. I just
All right, Tom.
See you,
step
Tom.
out. Take
Right,
care.
Tom. Have a good one, man.
right on.
Bye.
For me, it's very important that you show respect and punctuality and respect for the work, no matter your position, no matter your status, no matter your budget, and doesn't matter what type of work you do. So for me, it's the same if I'm talking to the housekeeper, the same thing if I'm talking to the man who's cleaning,
Absolutely.
actually more, because that's why I'm living in a clean environment, because somebody's taking care of that. So that's why it doesn't matter how small the job is of a person, somebody is doing that, so you can do something different. So
Yeah.
you should show respect, because you said, Brian, and also Isaac said, well, I'm an audio engineer. It doesn't matter. You can be an audio engineer, you can be a producer, and you can be actually the guy that opens you the door to a studio. You need to show respect to everybody, because everybody is working for the same goal you have. So
It's general human decency.
exactly.
Like, be nice to people.
Yeah.
And generally, they'll be nice back to you.
You know, there are two
Try to
things that I'm
work towards positive outcomes rather than conflict at every turn.
I had this problem nowadays, a couple of weeks ago, not in the studio, but in my day-to-day job, which is also a home desk job as well. So I need to sit down all the time. But the thing that I think is missing nowadays, and it's becoming rare and rare and rare, is to be humble, no matter what, and to be loyal. It's so rare to find people that are humble and loyal. It's like finding the needle in a haystack. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So
I think you have a culture, I can at least speak, in the U.S. that in my lifetime, it's become more transactional. I mean, it's the same way that we shop. It's the same way we consume media. Like, very rare, like, I can think of a couple, like, big name artists, like, Taylor Swift or something like that, where you have a fan base that's all in on that. But you have even looking at like TikTok, I mean, look at your engagement rates on posts and how long people viewed things for. It's like, we're flipping through stuff. We're clicking through stuff. I don't even have to think about it. Amazon tells me what I need to buy. I can go on a date. I cannot go on a date. You can swipe right or left. Like, everything is, nearly not as personal. And I think that those little things that can become modern conveniences also have an impact on how when we actually have real relationships and interfaces, whether it's personal or with a client. Like, we forget something that has to be cultivated. And you were talking, Rob, on your post talking about like working with Dempsey, and you guys have like this mind hive thing going on. I mean, that can't just work if you're just like, yeah, we're just trying to put out songs and turn and burn and churn it out as fast as possible. Like, you really have to connect with that other person, and be, you see all these posts about like being vulnerable and all that stuff, but like, I think largely people that say that are full of it. They're really not. You're not like letting yourself truly be in that moment and say, yeah, but, I'm going to put out an idea, and it might be trash, it might be great, but you have to even, let it out of that box that you keep inside of your head. But I think that we do all this stuff just to keep ourselves in, and man, it's that makes it where people, they don't even know how to be polite, because you're not in a position where you have to be polite because someone's not going to punch you in the face, right?
There,
It's like,
there is a
yeah.
question on the chat, what to be polite, what to be loyal to. For me, loyalty is something like is building a relationship in time. For example, I have someone providing a type of service for 10 years now,
Mhm.
and I'm still going to that person, even probably there's a new service opening near to where I live for the same purpose, but cheaper or near to where I live. So I need to travel for that particular service 10 miles. Although I could have it next to my door, I will still travel those 10 miles to that person that I have already a relationship built for 10 years. That's one type of loyalty I'm talking to. So let's say if me and Rob are in a project, or me and Brian or Isaac for years and years, because someone pops up in near to where I live and say I'm going to do the same stuff that Isaac does for you, but I'm here or I'm cheaper, I will decide to stay with Isaac in the boat, right? Until it works out, because it's a relationship that I've built over so many years. I don't want to drop it,
Yeah.
like a hot potato or something like that.
Yeah.
That's where I talk about loyalty.
You get more out of that than just, again, like it's, thinking about things as being transactional. Like you're not just making that I give money to this person for a service, they return the service for the money. Like, you have that rapport with them. They have the experience of knowing what your sensibilities are. If it's an equipment thing, they know your gear. Like, I've got people that have fixed gear for me, and like, I go to the same people all the time. Now, I'm always welcome to hear a new voice, but that new voice, like, it's like anybody have kids? I got kids. There's this thing that I didn't have growing up where like you try to like shove these kids into play dates and curate their experience. And that's not how the world works. Like, well, you have to share this, and that breeds people that are like, insufferable as adults. But it's like, you just have to have that honest relationship with somebody that is built naturally, and that creates trust. It's like, not only Rob, you and Dempsey like have a songwriting thing, but how often does he sharpshoot your mix? Probably never. He might have a
Rare.
comment here or there,
Yeah.
but he trusts you in that because you've built that trust, and it's not earned just because, hey, oh, I just met you, we're now best friends. Like, that's not
Exactly.
how that works.
Exactly.
Like,
And on
90-day
that,
marriage, like that's not how human beings are. Like, you have to build that confidence in somebody and know that I'm safe with you.
and
Oh,
exactly on that point, Goliath is saying that he doesn't agree with me because he's telling his artists to go to everyone to find their sound. I'm not talking about that. I'm not saying if someone comes or we are working, let's say, again, I'm going to take Rob, for example. Me and Rob, we are starting pro. I'm not saying stick with me because we just started. I'm saying if we already found our sound and our flow, for years now, then I'm talking about loyalty. Stay with me, not because someone does it cheaper and you want to, go explore it just because it's cheaper. So I think, like you said, Brian, you're building more than just a service. It's not just a transaction.
Totally.
It's more than that. It's a trust you have. It's a like very familiar to your workflow. I don't know. For me, it's my personal and humble opinion. Again, it doesn't need to be for everyone, but I think once I'm building a foundation with someone in terms of a service or collaboration, I'm tending to stick to that person, no matter what the type of service is. It can be outside of the sound and mixing, and it can be like with my guy who cuts my hair. If I am going to that guy for 15 years, I will still go to that guy and I will travel 10 miles to get to him. Although I probably have someone here doing it for the half of the price, but yeah. Well, it applies to me at
What do
least.
you cut your hair? What are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
And it's my barber, and I love him, and I love how we are more than just.
Yeah,
It's just more
you
than
end up
just
being
service.
friends, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
You
that's what
say,
I'm saying.
how are your
I'm
kids?
thinking
You know?
he raised his price, right? But I kept going to him because it's uncomfortable for me because I need to travel 10 miles to get to him. But I'm going to him for 15 years. I'm not going to drop it now.
Well, even like for me in the touring industry, right? There are certain artists that you come up with, like you started out with them when they were in a van. Everybody ate pizza, kind of thing. You're just
Smelling
starting
like
out.
shit in a van.
Yeah, and you're doing sound for these people, and you develop this thing. I have artists now that I trained up the next sound engineer to replace me. But when big events come, like, hey man, we got this huge thing coming, we're playing this festival, they'll reach out to bring me back
Right.
because they trust me. They're loyal to me in that sense. Now, it's not that they don't trust the new sound person that they're rolling with. It's just like, hey, you know what? This is something really special. We want you to come in for this really special thing just to make it happen. And then as I do that, I'm also teaching the guy, well, this is why they're bringing me in to do it. So if I'm getting ready to hand that stuff off, I'm always, that individual's always with me, learning. Well, why did they bring you back for these events? Well, I mean, you've been running shows that are 200 people, 300 people. We're now at a show that's 10,000 people. There's a difference there, and the way that you operate that type of thing. So it's just that loyalty is just, it's invaluable, because then you develop these relationships that go on forever. And you may not have to do everything for them, but sometimes you do everything for them.
You know what? This is a really good point too, because I get where Goliath's coming from, but I think you took it way out of context. Because when you talk about the term loyalty, Isaac just detailed it. And you could think of it as an analogy that you got shows, right? And maybe there's 30 people involved. There's 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 people I'm loyal to. I'm going to try to get them in on it. But all these other 30 people are involved as well. It doesn't mean you've got to be loyal to just that person. Only you're going to get the opportunities, right? It's just like when things come in and I get an opportunity on my table and I need something, the first person that pops in my mind is that person I'm working with. And I'm going to bring them in as well and try to bring them in on the deals. And that's how loyalty and bonds and friendships and relationships are built. It comes from that. It doesn't mean that like you can't go off and work with other people. Like just as Goliath said, I encourage my artists to work with other people. I do too. Dempsey has got other things going on outside of me, and so it doesn't mean like you have to only work with me. That's not the message at all. It's just once you build that bond, it's like you're going to go off and have opportunities, and so am I. And let's figure out how we could take all of these and help each other, benefit. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for rephrasing that. That's what I actually meant. So it's not like totally disagreeing with everybody in the world, but first you go to the person, or at least if that person says, let's try something new, then you already agreed with him that you're going to try something new. So I think makes sense and somebody asked on the chat also, how do you start a bond like that? I don't have a perfect recipe I don't have like something that's the logic for it. It just happens. For me, it's you start working with people and you have more and more projects and you're more and more happy how it goes. And from point on, you feel like it's familiar and you get comfortable with that person. And there are people that you meet for the first time, and they are like, nah, I don't want to, it's not there. I don't feel it, and it's nothing you did or that person did. It just doesn't click. So, yeah.
To build a bond with me, just buy me tacos.
Nice. It's. I think that the answer to a lot of that, it's nothing to do with engineering. I mean, building a bond is it's outside of any particular, you know, set of circumstances. Like, how do you build a bond with with your friend? How do you build a bond with a coworker or, you know, relative? You know, whatever it is. It's like, you know, it's just building bonds with people. And there's different levels of relationships. We have professional relationships, we have personal relationships, but I think there's same interpersonal skills and the openness to want to understand somebody else. I think it takes curiosity, you know, and a desire to have that. I mean, sometimes, like, I know people that simply don't want anybody else in their life, and they still work, but they don't. You know, it's very transactional. I do this, you pay that, and then that's the end of it. And that can also be okay.
You know, like,
Relationships sounds like what.
yeah, he kept going. It's all good, Goliath. No problem. It's just, I get your point. It's just the one thing I think
it's a huge issue.
Yeah, yeah, and the truth is this, right? Like, and I'll just reference my experience with Dempsey in the beginning. I think it was maybe the first 4 or 5 months was a bit rocky. You know, we did some tracks. They weren't doing what I thought they were going to do. We had some mishaps with our distributor. There was things that I felt like Dempsey could have done. I think there was things that he felt like I could have done, you know, that would have made it smoother. And so in that moment, we were building that bond, right? And like, I say this a lot, it's really easy when things are going smooth, really easy to, but when things get rough, that's when the moment of truth comes out, right? And him and I got through it. We got through it with flying stars. And you know, fast forward now, it's like he totally trusts me and I trust him because of that, those situations we went through. You know, not only did we both do the right thing for each other, but we did it for ourselves. We got through it, and it built that bond. That loyalty came from that, you know. And so it's a matter of time. It's a matter of going through things together, good and bad. Definitely, like, good is very how should I put it? Deceiving, you know, because once things get very rocky, that's when I think that the loyalty, the relationships get tested. You know, so it takes time. Sure. But at the end of it, to me, loyalty is just this. You know, as Dempsey and I have now moved forward, again, going back to like any opportunities that come to my table that may have, like, I'm like, oh, Dempsey would be perfect for this. He's the first guy I'm calling.
Yeah.
First guy I'm calling. And that's what it comes down to.
I'm so glad you gave that example because I'm going to give now a pragmatical example. And I totally agree with Goliath. It's, of course, everyone has their opinion. I totally respect that. Yeah, that's what makes this conversation so interesting because everyone has an opinion. I do respect that we all have an opinion on that. But for me, it's like in the past, you had a problem with the TV. Sorry if it's so pragmatical, but it's like the past. You had a problem with the TV. You couldn't afford to buy a new one. You had to repair the existing one. And I feel like nowadays, if something breaks, everybody changes it.
Yeah.
You know? And now it's an analogy to friendship and to building relationships and bonds, right? So like you said, Rob, you found a problem. There was something that was not working. You fixed it. You didn't change the artist and the artist didn't change you as a producer. That's what I mean by loyalty.
Exactly.
That's similar to what we were talking about in the transactional nature of things, and which you could also say is we're in an era of disposability, you know, and it's like, yeah, dude, I mean, how many people know how to fix something? I'll just buy another one, you know, and they don't even think about it. I mean, and I think all of this is connected together. The disposability in our personal lives, the transactional nature, like all of that impacts the art that we do and the technical side of how we try to get that art out to the world. I mean, I'll be the old guy with some gray in my beard, but like I can listen to music and I can listen to a lot of the tops. I mean, I'm kind of with Rick Beato, you know, and it's like, there's a lot of music out there that just, it's good, but it's not good. And it's transactional and it's basic. Yeah. And it has no thought to it. And it's like this backwards thinking algorithmic, like I'm going to cut and paste chord progressions and like, you know, have no thought because I'm clicking, I'm swiping, you know, it's all the same headspace that that I think culturally, the world largely is in. And I think everything is downstream. The relationships are downstream from that. And like you said, like, and I was going to ask you, Rob, like, so when you said that Dempsey thought there were some things you could have done differently in that early bit, and you both took a chance on each other and invested in each other. You invested with like a prospectus that say, I don't know, man, 99% of the time, all this stuff fails anyway, but I'm going to still take a shot on you. You're taking a shot on me. But was he right in like saying that there were some things that you could have done differently?
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yeah. And like that moment there, if you acknowledge that in the relationship and admit that, yeah, you're totally right. I should have done this other thing.
Yep.
Whether you knew to do it or you didn't know or whatever the case is, like, you have the openness to accept that and say, yeah, dude, you are totally right. And if the same thing was for him, like whatever you mentioned that some things that he could have done differently, man, that is a huge thing about growth. And like, you can't replace that. And the only way to even get that, there's no instant same day shipping for that kind of shit, man. Like,
you hit it on that.
The only way to do it is to do it. And it's like this thing, here again, like the old dude ranting, but we talked about this before, man. There's no substitute for the work.
No, not at all.
It's work, man. Like, anything. It's effort you're putting into it. You can't be, Wally, like some just big fat dude slugging, 128 ounces of Mountain Dew on my Weasel zip car. Like, like you got to do the work. You got to put your own feet in front of the other and walk into something, kind of bite your teeth and tuck your chin and take the shots in the face and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we all got here, right? I mean,
dude, this shit ain't hard. This isn't easy.
Like, so hard to get here. Yeah,
man.
Yeah. We just talked earlier about me traveling with bands and vans that just reek. Like,
yeah. Hey, you wanna like wear the same 4 black T-shirts and eat Taco Bell every night?
And I will
smell
say
like farts and cigarettes.
Yeah.
There's like, I'm always looking for like up and comers, and things like that. But like, let's just put it this way. Going back to what Brian was talking about, getting punched in the face. Me and Dempsey been punched in the face many, many times. And that's like what got us to this point is like when we run into snags, we're already kind of good at dealing with it. It's just like, it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to fight for this, right or wrong. Sometimes like, even if I feel like I'm right and they're like adamant, it's like, I'm okay at stepping back. Go ahead. You take the reins. I'm good on that.
Not everything is worth the heat, man.
100%. And like, if you could get to this relationship with someone that has enough experience in dealing with it and like this is where the real magic is, and I don't know, I prefer to work with experienced people because like we've already been down this road. We could all relate, and the younger not necessarily age, but just lack of seniority is gonna probably utilize their ego in those situations and come with that God complex, so to speak. It's the ones that have been hit a lot and knocked down. You get humbled, and it's like, yeah, I'm not going to fight for it. It's not worth it. And so there's a magic there. And like, that's like, when you find people like that, hold on to them.
Yeah. You're talking about like the seniority. And I think, as somebody I've been already through, I'm on the back half of my arc. And again, there's no replacing it, and everybody that's younger has to go through that thing of why are all these old dudes? You're only here because you're the old dude or whatever it is, And it's like, I think there's something to be said, especially in the music, the entertainment, the audio world. Like, I'm not saying this necessarily for myself or Isaac, I see Gray over there.
Yeah. Bro, we're probably really close to the same age.
This is an industry that will, if you are not competent, like about all the bluster, and I don't give a shit about how many TikTok views you have. There's a lot of these cats out there giving trash advice that they don't mix anything.
Yep.
Nobody hires them you know, and it's like, cool. I'm glad you've got your warm audio deal. Don't give a shit, you know. But it's like you'll see that you have to go through that bit, and knowing how hard it is, the old dudes that are still doing it, they've probably learned something, because otherwise you're going to be out there, you know, selling insurance or getting your real estate license, because making a living doing this thing, it can be a challenge. And I'm so blessed and so lucky to be able to do it. But I don't know about you guys, like, you know, I'm cutting some vocals later today, and tomorrow I'm gonna go fly a giant PA. You know, I'm 51, and yeah, we're gonna be unloading a truck and hanging 20 boxes per side. You know, doing a band in a 10,000 seat venue. It's like, I don't necessarily want to be unloading trucks, but that's the gig. You know, it never gets any easier. It's like in racing. It's like it only gets faster. You know,
I always say this too: is the older.
but you got to go through this thing. I don't mean, sorry,
Sure.
for all the people that are like seniority. Oh, the ages, and you know, the gatekeepers. I'm like, dude, shut up, quit whining.
Yeah, seriously.
Literally, it's like I went through it. I had the old guys that I didn't understand at the time. And I'm like, man, oh, how come I'm not getting this gig? Why is this old guy getting it? It's like, you know, everybody goes through it. It's a part of the process. You'll come out better on the backside of it. But yeah, man, you just gotta you got to do the grunt work. You got to go through it and live through it. There is no shortcut. There's no plug-in, you know, from my one simple game changer. It's like, go unload the truck. Go figure out what happens on the session when your interface goes down. What are you doing then? You know, drum head breaks, guitar string snaps. Like, what's your plan? Like, you know, as the old Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until they get, you know,
hit in the face.
punched in the face.
Yeah. I always quote the Rocky thing too, because life is not about how hard you can hit; it's about how hard you can take a hit and keep going.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
There used to be that one meme where it was a picture of the like an older studio,
Right.
all the gear and everything. It says, "Drop a new engineer here and see what they know, what they can do in a space like that." And it's like, yeah, I mean, we cut our teeth on some pretty gnarly technology. I mean, shoot, I still have some like canary cable from like 20, 30 years that I just.
It's still good though, right?
Breaks.
Like all the rubber's dry rotted.
Yeah.
Two things I want to share with you. So first, I want to apologize for everybody in the chat. If I'm not answering, is because if I'm writing in the chat, it will not appear. I have a problem with my TikTok account. That aside, I think everybody is in
You got
this.
warrants.
Yeah. I didn't do any bad, but you know, I think what Jay said, and I think that is for everybody in this call. Everyone is in this business because of their love for music and everything that's attached somehow to music. If it's gear, if it's studios, if it's PAs, if it's whatever, it's attached to music. That's why we are in here. And that's why the work, you know, it doesn't bother you. That's because you put the hours, because it doesn't matter. You know, it's the love for music that's above all things, you know, and it's worth it because you have the love for music. That's it.
Yeah. I don't think that's thank you for, you know, saying that. That's like, we all need to remember that every day. Like, dude, like, you know, like I'll get these offers all the time on LinkedIn and stuff like that. And these like corporate AV jobs and things that are out there, which really means that you're managing like a Crestron system and you're not doing any audio, you know, you're like help desk kind of crap, but you can make 150K,
Yep.
you know, working remotely. I'm like, dude, that'd be great. But like, you know,
You're miserable.
yeah, dude, everything else would be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Like
know.
I talk to my wife about that all the time because we all have our moments, right? It's like, I do
course.
something different. You know, why not do something different? But I'm just like, there's this beauty in the unknown and being able to build it yourself and just like, I don't know what's going to come this week. And those type of things like keeps you alive, you know, it's learning to be comfortable when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's something about that just it really does. It keeps you alive. It's great for the psyche, you know.
That's I think the nature of all development. You know, it's like sometimes studying is, you know, you don't know the thing and you have to learn the thing, and sometimes you're trying to absorb a lot of concepts at once and like your brain hurts, and but then there's that day when it snaps and you're like,
Yep.
oh, now I get it, you know, and then you're just on to the next thing, you know, this cumulative knowledge. It's no different than like physical activities. Like, you know, how many kids like and parents let their kids quit a sport after 3 practices because they're not like travel league all-stars right away. It's like, nah, man, because you suck. It's like you're supposed to suck when you're first starting out. Like, you're not supposed to be good, you know. And it's like, it's okay, you know. You just gotta, yeah. There's no fast forward button, you know. It's like the old, it's like the Saturday morning cartoon analogy. Like, if you never had Saturday morning cartoons and you never learned how to wait,
Yeah.
you know, or like, oh man, what's gonna happen next week on Lost, you know. It's like, you know, you figure out, like, you know, it's a season cliffhanger. Like, there's no binging. It's
Your parents, we gotta make it home. We gotta get home.
yeah, exactly. I hope I TiVo'd that.
So true. That it's like such a different time, huh?
But all that being said, I think there's great things, you know, for young, especially for back to the engineering side. Like, there's so many valuable lessons. I think, you know, Isaac, you and I learned growing up, that I don't ever want to do again.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to cut tape. I'm glad that I've done it, but I don't want to do that. God, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's nerve-wracking, you know, and having to solder and like getting hot solder and burning a hole in my, like, it's good to know how to do it, but man, sure is easier when you have a lot of things. Man, I could just Amazon a cable and get it tonight, you know, like, and the availability of, man, if I could only get my hands on like 8 channels of API, dude, I can have like 100 at the touch of my fingers.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that your music's going to be any better, but it's like, you know, some of that stuff, like you learn the intrinsic lesson of patience and perseverance and that, but the practical side is like, yeah, dude, it's much better to be able to get it now, to be able to get good, inexpensive, like your Callies. God, you know, like to get good monitors, like the, you know, the first time I heard a set of old Westlakes, I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
You know, because before you're just working on like total trash speakers.
Yep.
You know, and now you get, yeah, and it's like you learn so much with that, but I think it's, you know, the practical side is it's not a great look. Dude, I want to mix on NS10s. Like,
it's not fun.
No, and it's like, I'd rather mix on something that's accurate and gets me to the destination, you know. But old man rant complete.
Listen, bro, I'm right there with you, bro. I'm 49, so
Oh, you're almost
right
there.
there. Right
It's
there.
like tipping on the line.
Yeah.
Is that VSXs? What is that? That's KRK, right? Goliath? Isn't that KRK? VSX?
VSX.
I think it's the high-end KRKs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
VSX. Isn't VSX the Slate?
Oh,
headphone?
Slate.
Yeah.
With the Slate headphone.
Oh, I was way off. Okay.
Yeah, I was way off.
I think it's VXT, maybe. You know, the first time I heard Asperger's, that happened to me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, holy crap. What have I been mixing on? Like, holy crap, blowing my mind.
Yeah, I had that experience. This is still probably 15 years ago. It was like when the Barefoot, the mini mains first came out, and like listening. I went to a studio here, Bias Studios in Springfield, Virginia. They've done a ton of cool albums, like all that Ava Cassidy stuff, like right before she, like, brilliant records. And we went in there for a demo, and it's this old 70s kind of place, and it's got this sunken pit with the shag carpet and stuff. But there was a Barefoot demo that was in there, and they'd put on like some Steely Dan and like Dark Side of the Moon, and like it was like Asia and Dark Side of the Moon, 2 records I've heard I don't even know how many times. And then like I heard a level of detail on that
Right.
that I'd never heard. And I'm like,
Huh?
how did I not hear
Yeah.
that shaker? You know?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and you're like, oh. Well, that's why they're like 10 grand a pop, you know. That's for the left side.
Yep. Yeah, for the left side.
Now, if you want to get the right side, you know, it's like you
I got to experience Asperger's in
Yeah.
Atlas, and that I can't even describe it to you. It was back to back. I did Vocal, I did Neumann, IK Multimedia, and then Asperger. And the Asperger just was like, I was blown away. Like, holy crap, what are they doing to these things? And I can't remember the record I was listening to, but that happened to me. There's detail in it, and I heard like it was like a hi-hat, like percussion piece that I never heard before. What the heck was that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What were they listening to when they mixed on this thing? They're like NS10s.
Yeah, for sure, right? And who knows? And that's a funny thing that you mentioned that. Like,
That's so funny.
they might not have heard that.
You're right.
It just might have been there. You know, I mean, it's like I remember hearing Black Cow off of Asia, and there's like this delay that was on like a Rhodes piano that I'd never heard, and like you could just hear how the taper went off, and it's like, you know, and again, I've listened to that on decent speakers and on NS10s, and that's a funny thing you said. Like they might have never even heard that, but the fundamental bit of it like still works.
Right.
You know, but it's like, yeah, you might not hear like you know, especially in those areas, like maybe you get like a 480L that's still one of the best reverb units out there.
Right.
You might not have heard the very, very, you know, bit at the end of the tail on some of those speakers, you know.
And that goes to say a lot about, you know, sometimes when you mix, you feel it more than you actually hear it. You know, and I think I've watched you, Rob, sometimes when you're mixing some reverbs and stuff like that in. It's not like so that you hear all the detail of it, but there's just enough of it to where it's like, oh, there's something there. But if I mute it, it's gone.
Yeah, it's like giving it a lift or whatever, and that's all we're going for.
And then when you hear it on better speakers like that, you're like, oh, well, dang, it's like really doing it.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
It's one of those things that many times, like, I don't want to hear the verb.
Yeah.
But when you mute it, you know it went away.
Yeah.
You know, it just needs to like, oh yeah, now it sounds natural. It's like we were talking, you know, early on with like those like close miking of the string stuff or a lot of live. Like nobody listens to the instrument that way. You almost have to do some of those EQ moves in order to bring it back into its natural state. Nobody puts their head inside of a bass drum, you know, to listen to it. You know, I mean, that's why the mic itself has a particular curve. It's got you know, the capsule has a certain, you know, response to it that, you know, is doing its math down through the signal chain, hopefully to come back out on the other end to sound like a bass drum.
Right.
You know, no one's listening to a vocal right there. You know, and like get right up on the pop filter. You know,
perfectly.
Like I don't want to like, you know, look in the back of your throat. You know, kind of a thing. It's like what's the little dangly guy? You know.
I always find the difference in opinions of what a good mix is interesting. And I've just stopped with the data, right? Like Dempsey and I have to use him as my example because I do so much work for him. But like, he likes his mixes harsh, and I'm like, I like mine warm and smooth.
Yeah.
You know, and so we had to find that balance with each other. You know, on what, you know, I want to make him happy first and foremost, but I also want to be like proud of the work. You know, and so we had a lot of discussions on this. And
there was one year that I went to the NAMM show, and they had done this mix thing. Mm-hmm. They took one song and they had 3 different engineers mix the same exact song. And then we came back and took a listen to the mixes, completely different points of view. They all sounded great. They all sounded great. But it was just what they perceived what needed to be forefront, what needed to be brighter, what needed to be warmer, that kind of thing. Right. But it was a fantastic, you know, demonstration to see that you could take one piece and have 3 different people work on that same piece, and it comes back different.
Yeah, that's something that actually when Michael was on, he's saying like, everybody having the same mix change, you're going to get different results. And I mean, that's something that we should want that,
Totally.
where this whole thing of like, what's your signal chain for like, I understand the nature of all those questions. And there is an industry that's, people make bread off of that. And like, you do your thing. I don't necessarily know if it's always with the best intentions, and it's like I don't want like oh, Serban uses this. I don't give a shit. I could care less. Like, and because I don't have his ears,
Right.
I mean,
That's what Goliath just said.
literally or figuratively. It's like I might hear it a different way. So it's like we talked a long time ago like about doing in-ear monitor mixes, and man, I don't have your head. I don't have your resonance. The whatever they call that something effect where like I'll take an in-ear mix and I'll high pass that 300 plus because you have the bone res. Like I don't hear it the way you do, so I don't care what gear you have, as long as the end of the day, like something that you listen to says, yeah, that sounds good. And then Isaac mixes the same song and like, oh, well, that's different, but it also sounds good. Like that ultimately should be the end goal, yeah. Rather than like, we should all have the same thing. I mean, it's weird that that you were again talking about that transactional thing, and we've had the plug-in culture and all of that. These sort of repetitive topics that we have, but it can't hurt to keep hammering that home. And it's like, I hope that some of the elder statesmen can help keep that from going off the rails. I think you get with AI and things coming into play and drag and drop song creation, and it can easily go the opposite way from being unique and creative, and that's what it always should be, but anyway, yeah. we should all strive to have different mixes.
Well, me and Dempsey got into the weeds of this because me personally, my ears are sensitive to high frequency. So that's why I like warmer mixes, right? He always tells me all the time, he's like, I'm like deaf in my right ear and I got to turn stuff up really loud. This is why he likes his mixes to be brighter and a little more harsh in my words, right?
Yeah, right.
So you're detailing it out of like the difference in us,
Right.
And like him and I have gotten to the bottom of why I like my mixes warmer and why he likes his brighter. And now that I know that, I can cater to that, right?
And it's not even like musical taste.
No, not even.
It's literally an anatomical difference.
100%. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the music itself. And the truth is this too: neither of the mixes are bad. That's the truth of it. And so it's just like, when you understand this, like I don't even fight it anymore. I'm just like, I'll send stuff to him, and he'll be like, oh man, it's great. And maybe I'll make changes sometimes outside of like, I'll be the snare just need to be turned down by a dB or something, it's poke out of the mix. But most of the time, like, I knock out one the first go around, and him and I are both like, yeah, we're not going to fight on this. It just doesn't make much of a difference at the end of the day for the listener. Like, does it feel right? Does it sound good? Right. We're just going to leave it at that. Like, we don't need to get all like crazy technical. The transient at, the 6,000 hertz is poking out at the snare. We should, bip the EQ. Like, come on.
Right. I mean, I say all this stuff, trying to have an air of comedy to it, but like, yeah, man, like, who gives a shit? Like, so much of that, like, that's really nerd stuff. Like, totally. Now, if you're talking about a genuine problem that somebody was talking about, like unwanted distortion, then absolutely, you need to go into a technical mindset. The Mike was talking about the right brain, left brain, how to stay in one space or the other. When you're dealing with genuine problem solving, the actual engineering side of the audio engineering, then you need to be there and you need to be accurately fixing that problem with great detail, high level of like sort of a scientific sort of method and a scalpel. But when it comes down to the rest of the stuff, like, man, there's so many pro mixes that I could think of where I'm like, huh, I guess, you know, and I don't even know if sometimes there's stuff that I would say is even good to me, but like somebody liked it. So, some label exec, you know, rubber stamped it and said, yeah, let's release that. And then it ends up making money. There was something, I talked about it before, and it was like one of these Tyler, the Creator tracks that personally to me, and like, I'm not in that world. I really don't care. Like, it sounded like a bag of smashed ass to my ears. And it wasn't even, and like, I'm hearing audible distortion. And this was my first initial response to it. And like, what is this? This just sounds like somebody took like a bunch of loops and sort of aligned them, you know, on a grid and just let them sort of play and overlap. Then I stopped myself and I was like, who am I to say?
Right.
You know, just because maybe I didn't get it, you know, and there's some stuff that like, it is probably just bad. It isn't that you just don't get it. You're not advanced enough. Like, you know, it's not like some of this like wacky modern art, you know. I'm just going to stand on a paper clip and I want you to understand what, you know, like, no, that's, you're just full of shit. But I mean, when I listened to it, I was like, yeah, man, this is, I don't know what this is. I don't like it. You know? And then you know what I did? I didn't say shit.
Yeah, who cares?
I just listened to the next track. I'm like, oh, I like this one better. You know, it's like, I don't have to sit there and make a big fuss about it or complain and contact, you know, AES. Like, we need to pull this guy's membership card. Do you hear that? Like,
Man. It's art. At the end of the day, it's art. It's all art.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Goliath is totally right. They took a pre-mastered 2-track from YouTube, recorded over it, then mastered it again. Yes, I've had an artist that mastered my master, and when I like, not the only one that's done this, but like trashed it.
Yeah.
To the point when I was like, hey man, did you upload the file I sent you? Oh no, I just did a couple tweaks to it. I'm like, oh, that's like, I don't even want that stuff on my credit list at all. Like, nah, that's a hard pass. But yeah, that's funny. Master
I
to master.
I used to have a pseudo name when people would, you know,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's Juan's Taco Shop. That's where you recorded this at.
Yeah, it's like mastered by IP freely. Yeah, like there's Hollywood director like pseudonyms that are like, oh yeah, I'm on a deal with the studio, so I've got to do 5 pictures and I got to like finish my contract, so I'm gonna just do these 2 garbage scripts and knock them out, but I don't want to put my name on the project.
Yep.
Free me from the contract.
We've all been there. I have too many of those. I'm mostly not proud of the projects that I've done.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Maybe, you know, we dive into that, you know, in more detail on another episode. But like I think we've all had work that we've done that's been commercially released that I'm like, God, I don't know if I want to put my name on that. And it really has nothing to do with the mix or something like that. It's just like, this is just not good.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, you know, sort of what you do in those circumstances and, you know, maybe how to avoid it, or if it's something you should avoid, maybe it's a good thing to go through. I think that's a whole, put that on your list of, you know, topics. Like, what do you do when a project's trash? You know, and yeah, like, you know, against popular convention, but yeah, not everything is good. You know, just because your choir teacher said you're a good singer, or like, I don't want to invalidate you with your lived experience or some kind of shit like that. Like, nah, man, it's just not good. You know,
You know, like,
Brian, I like you.
maybe this is my age talking, but like, and it's funny because I'm proud of the instrumental I did, but I produced quite a few instrumentals for Growing Up Hip Hop, this television show, right?
oh yeah,
And I tried to watch it. Oh my God, dude! I'm like, I can't. I like couldn't even make it through. I don't care. I don't even want to hear my music on it. And it was the TV show that I didn't care for, and it was just the way the kids were acting and whatnot in it. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to talk about this too much.
Yeah. 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 And it's like, yeah, for somebody to, when you try to do those things that I look at every gig that I do, whether I'm playing on a record, I'm playing a show, I'm mixing a show, I'm mixing a record, like it's all part of my business card. So I try to approach every single thing that I do and do it to the very, very best of my ability. Not only as a matter of pride, but it's practical, because like you don't want to go out there and, just totally, ass up a show, and then somebody hears you like, oh yeah, I'm not calling that dude, but also like, somebody's giving you their cash and trusting you with their product, so you should be respectful of the nature of that relationship, and in that sort of micro loyalty there. It's like, yeah, it's almost a mercenary kind of stuff. Like, cool, man. Who do you want me to go punch? You just gave me $10.
Cash at me, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, Fade Mall, where are you starting school?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to put out a challenge to some of the audio engineers out there. If you want to get better at some stuff, try limiting the plugins that you use.
Yep.
Tie your hands a little bit. Try going down to just like a compressor, EQ, kind of thing, and just see what you can do and the sounds that you can get from just doing that. That will teach you a lot about tones, textures, and making yourself better.
Yeah, it's like,
I remember mixing live shows where the band didn't have a budget for like a whole rack of stuff. And all we had was an analog console and a graphic EQ.
Yep.
And
maybe a little 3-band EQ on a channel or something.
Yeah, 3-band EQ on a channel. That's all you got. And I worked really, really hard until it got to a point where people were giving me compliments on how things sounded and asking if I actually had drum triggers on my drums. And I was like, and they're like, "What compressor are you using?" I was like, "I got no compressors."
It's right here.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yep.
Fingers.
It's called moving that fader.
Yep. So
mixing.
If you're an aspiring audio engineer, that's one tip that I'll give you. Tie your hands a little bit. Don't overuse all the plugins. Try to see what you can do with a mix with just an EQ and a compressor.
Well, and contrary to popular belief, 3 bands is more than enough.
Yeah.
Right.
This is more than enough.
Generally speaking. I
Yeah.
mean, Rob, you talked about this, probably a couple months ago, but it's like, we're getting the balance first just off the tracks. After we ensure that they all have a reasonable gain structure, then it's just like, yeah, balance, mono balancing, and then some panning, and then maybe if it needs it, some EQ, and then compression. Like reaching for those tools first before you have a mix is always a guaranteed, at least in my opinion, a guaranteed way of not getting to the best possible end result the fastest. Because you always end up like, oh, I'm going to, EQ this in solo mode. And, cool, kick drum sounds great by itself, but in the context of the mix, it's like,
you're
it's
making
terrible.
way more moves after that. Everybody's
Totally.
And you're just creating extra work for yourself.
Actually, it's funny you bring that up because I'm such a big proponent on that. I consider it like 80-85% of the mix. It's like the crux of it, just getting the leveling and balancing right. And I send, I'm doing an album with Dempsey right now. I sent him like 5 beats last week. And he was like, he texted me. He was like, "Holy crap, bro, you mix these really well." I was like, I didn't mix any of those. It's all just
balance.
It's all
I mean, it is mixing, but
yeah,
it is. Yeah, it totally is. But no EQ, no compression, just what came in on the effects and whatnot I did in the production phase, and then level it, send it off. I'll mix it after you send me the vocals. And and for him, he's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm telling you, leveling is like massive." A lot of times I'll level stuff and I'm like, I don't even know what to do now because it sounds so damn good.
Yeah, and if your source tones are good,
yeah, it's like now I don't want to jack it up.
Right.
That's usually my initial thoughts. Like, I'm gonna mess this up, dude, because it already sounds good.
He said, Fade said, recording radio film connection. I've never heard of that school.
Either.
I don't know who said it on
Well,
this
yeah.
live
Well,
or
good luck.
on I read it somewhere, but or I heard it in this live before, but um, was something like the best mix is where you get the producing part of the track and you only have to balancing it. That's the best thing to
Yeah, I
do,
agree.
right?
I completely agree.
But that doesn't happen. So,
I mean, that's what I
anyways,
tell when I go around and I teach like churches how to do audio production and stuff like that. And I tell them, a majority of your mix really comes from what's being played on the stage.
Yep.
Source.
Arrangement is done well. If you're staying out of the way, you're spreading your hands on the keyboard, all that kind of stuff. Like that takes the whole mix to just so much.
Everybody play here, right in first
Yeah, if
position of
everybody played,
everything.
in the center,
First position guitar, like, and sing the melody right in that same space.
and then the acoustic player, playing like every single note possible in there, and you're like, wait.
Capo 3. Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. It comes down to if you produce and arrange properly, even in a live setting, that's huge. Just that's a majority of your mix.
I need to drop off. Apologies for that. Thank you for the invitation, Rob. Nice to see you, Brian, Isaac again.
Oh, good
And
to see you, Christian.
I'll see you next week then.
Yes, sir.
If Take
Bye,
care,
buddy.
guys.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
man. Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that, like the live stuff. That it's almost probably, I don't know. It's hard to say. Is it more important? But man, it's critically important in a live setting to stay out of the way,
Yeah.
and especially when you're doing things where, the bigger the venues, the bigger the PA, which means there are more microphones. Because how are you going to hear this thing? I mean, if there's not a mic on something, you're probably not going to hear it the larger it gets. And certainly if you're doing a broadcast mix of something,
Yeah.
like if there's no mic, you don't hear it at all. Like, people watching on whatever live you're doing, it's like, they're like, okay, I see the hand moving, but I hear nothing happening. But it's like the more tracks that you get, the more mics that you have on stuff is probably the more critical it is to try to stay out of the way as much as possible. Like there's that old bit from Bob Rock talking about producing the Black Album from Metallica, and it's like, at the end of the day, it has to come out of 2 speakers, or 25 if you're doing Atmos. But
Right.
we're talking in stereo. Like you can have things mic'd, you can have the tracks, you can have all the channels, but it's all fighting for the same space coming out of 2 drivers. And so like getting that balance of that, and sometimes I just need to like almost not even hear something. I want to perceive it.
Right.
The same kind of deal with the reverb, and like it's the same kind of deal with the tracks. It's just like, you can't have everything up at unity.
Right. Yeah. No.
You know,
And I would also suggest, at least for me, running live sound, I think made me a better studio engineer because it made me think on my
totally.
feet.
Yeah.
You move more of a gut reaction.
Yeah.
You move a whole lot because with a live setting, right? You only have one shot.
Yep.
You got one shot.
There is no.
Our
Hey, go back to the
audience-
chorus and do it again.
Yeah. So if another suggestion for you young engineers out there, if you can get yourself into a live setting, I mean, I'm not saying become a live sound engineer, but give it a shot. See what it's like to be able to have to make a quick decision and know how to make those decisions quickly, and rather than sitting there like fooling around, all that kind of stuff. I think that helps a lot. So
Yeah, there's a something to remember. Even the best live mixers, your Scovilles and So's and that kind of stuff, like everything is still reactive.
yeah,
You're making a mix change after you hear something happening. The vocal's a little hot, I pull it back. The vocal's not hot enough, I give it a little bit of a push. I mean, sometimes like once you're working with the same artist and the set, like, okay, I know that there's going to be a guitar bump that comes up here because there's a solo. So you're going to do your manual
Right.
automation kind of
Right.
things, or, muting channels out on different scenes for different songs that I don't need all these open mics happening. Those kind of things can be preemptive, but largely you're still reacting. And man, I've gone into do these arena shows and we tune the room, and we tune the room when it's like 72 degrees in there.
And
And then you get like I did the shows for Flow Rida last year, and dude, it is in the summertime, indoors, in a big venue though with a big metal roof, and man, the curve on the PA. Once you got all those sweaty bodies plus that hot sun finally coming in, dude, it's like I'm just going through and like getting the mix up, and I'm like, I'm just going through and like making
all your adjustments.
Dips on the EQ for the system to compensate for, the air change. And subs are reacting differently, and the artist. Well, he wasn't even there on the sound check, but like the stage volume on a Flow Rida show, right? Like it was twice as loud as it was in the sound check. So you're just dealing with all of this, and you gotta. There's no hitting stop.
Yeah.
You gotta just like do the gig and make sure people hear that lead vocal.
Yep.
Feel that low end and hear the lead vocal.
Yeah, for sure, especially on that kind of stuff.
You get a question from Adonis.
Oh, okay.
It says, why is a high pass shelf better than a low pass cut on a kick or sub bass?
I don't know if it's better. I know that they react differently, and it also will depend upon the type of curve and phase alteration. We've got to get analog, on here to, fully talk about that. But yeah, the phase curve of a particular EQ might be more musically appealing in a certain circumstance than, the high or low pass type of a deal. It's like, when people look at like even like that, the Pultec trick.
Yeah.
I think you put the cut and the boost both on 60, and you boost it and you cut it at the same level, and the shape actually changes. So I think it's a phase alteration that could maybe be sonically more pleasing. Then it would all depend upon the actual acoustic instrument or the sample that's being used of which one's better. But it's an awesome question. That means two different solutions to solve that problem. So I would say that's the question is a smart question.
It is and I don't think there's any right answer for it. I think that's why it's great to take it, because if you are in an instance of trying to figure out which is better and which one isn't, I do this often. I'll put both of them on and bypass and close my eyes, figure out which one sounds the best. I mean, right now I'm doing a boom bap album with Dempsey, and I'm finding myself cutting a lot of highs and lows out of all the instruments just because that's the vibe and the sound. So you also have a set setting, a certain genre you're staying within, which could alter your decision in terms of what you would use, either a cut or a shelf.
I like that. Goliath says opening act asks you to change the mix. They're 15 minutes in.
Yeah. They take 25 minutes to get their X32 split, in-ear rig happening for the 15-minute set.
They haven't been punched in the face yet.
Sunless season. I mean, this is always a positive, thing to always remind people. Yeah, if you add reverb on too many tracks, it often becomes mush. That's for sure. It's I had a post a while ago about talking about people say, oh, it's warm or it's bright or it's this or the other. Oftentimes, like one track with verb or one track that you make warm or bright can often give the sensation on an entire mix that the thing is that it's really easy to overdo it for sure. Yeah. Again, that's smart, thoughtful statements that we got some good people in here.
Like this happened to me, but it wasn't in reverb. It was in texture. I was using a texture plugin that kind of adds like a analog vinyl crackle, if you will. You know what I mean? It's kind of a white noise sound, but not exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was on 3 of my instruments.
Oh.
Why can't I get this mix right? And I just kept like, I mean, I went through it like 3 times. This never happens to me, especially like now.
Right.
And it hit me. Like I was like, you know what? I think I had that texture plugin on 3 instruments, and I bypassed 2 of them.
Right.
Opened the whole mix up.
Yeah.
Like instant, you know. And it's like it's because this weird thing. It's like you don't technically hear it. You know what I mean? It's just all mushed in. Just what you said. It just becomes this mush.
Yeah.
It's hard to pinpoint what it is exactly, but yeah.
I had that. I think I told you about that. Actually, the song that just came out from that group, Ordinary Time. This was the one that I accidentally meaning I failed to check. There's no accident. I made an error on the initial mix going to mastering. Unfortunately, I was able to catch it, but it was the analog button engaged on the Studer on one of the tracks, because it has this long sort of ambient fade in.
Right.
And I'm like, what is this hiss?
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, dude, I was checking all of my gear, and I'm like, what the, you know, it was just driving me crazy because unfortunately the mastering guy is a friend of mine. He's like, are you sure this is what you wanted? You know, and so I'm going back there, I'm going through all the plugins and like, oh, right there, you know, it was on the ATR, and it had like, you know, the
that analog. Yeah,
and I'm like, and as soon as I turned it off, and I actually automated it to be off at the, you know, for the intro, and then once it finally got into the tune, it's like that character added something. But yeah, man, you can find like one little thing can make or break a track. Actually, you know, the sort of the inverse of what he's talking about with like too much verb. It's like you could have one thing that just like adds some bad funk.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of funny you say that though, because like you turn the hiss off. It's like, it sounds like crap in this section, but it like totally adds character in this section.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
son of a gun, now that this catch-22. Automation's always a great way around it, but that's happened to me before too, where it's like it sounds great in this section, but when the section quiet down, it's just sitting on the top, you know, and that, especially the hiss, that could
and all of this, like, you know, I don't ever think that we can talk about the same thing every week and it never gets old.
Totally.
But like we've said this a bunch of times, and this is where mixing comes into play. This set and forget mindset
Right.
makes, like, if you have like set and forget songwriting and formulaic, you know, meaningless lyrical content with nursery rhyme melody, and then a set and forget mix, like nothing good comes from that. It just more like, it's like the AI music. It's like, oh, that's neat, but it's like drivel, you know? But yeah, it's like you have to actively be engaged in all the aspects of it. You know, Brian Lucy, mastering engineer, just sort of talking about, you know, automating compression even in a mastering phase. And it's like, yeah, you just can't, like, it might sound great for the chorus,
Right.
or on a verse, but in the chorus, like, starts to get too smashed and starts to like mess with your low end. And then, you know, you couple that with the plug-in culture that, man, now you have 7 plugins on a track and 99 things on your master bus chain because, you know, you saw some video that said that's the sauce.
Yeah.
Now you got to go in there and like unass all that stuff and like figure out what to automate, what not to automate. And
dude, I think you just came up with a new word.
Unass?
Unass is epic. You know?
Yeah, that's
I did
like
see a comment there from Goliath about templates. Now, I will say this. I use templates for just my routing. I don't use templates as like,
Same.
this is my always go-to EQ or you know, EQ curve, compression, blah, blah, blah. No, I set up my templates where I have all my routing, I have my possible reverbs already lined up, kind of stuff like that. So there is a difference on template mixing where people are just going, hell yeah, just drop your files right here and you're done. No.
That's not even mixing. I mean, like, don't ever fool yourself into thinking that you did anything on that, because you didn't. Like, I mean, I don't mean
You
again
go
be
preset, right?
some
When people
old
pull up
geezer.
presets, they go, "Hey, yeah, there we go. That's the preset." I may pull
Yeah.
up a preset and I'll just start tweaking the snot out of it just to see, or I'll use the presets just to kind of say, well, what is this thing doing? What can it do? How far can I take it, kind of thing. So, but yeah, just keep in mind sometimes templates help because of the amount of routing that you do.
Right.
And then when I'm done with a session, I get rid of all the stuff that I'm not using. So when I do send it off to somebody, they have exactly what I did. But yeah, there's cases where I completely take off all the plugins and go, I didn't need any of them.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought that up because I actually think that gets super conflated. I think people are with the perception that templates are this like preset mix solution that you just drop all your stuff in and your mix is done. I think a lot of people actually think this when the truth is templates are just to get the routing, especially for Isaac and Brian and myself, is fairly complicated to the average or the beginner, right? And it takes a while to like go and set up that template if you're going to do it from scratch. And so you have one custom to your studio. I have one custom to my studio. I'm sure he has one, and we route it according to our gear, knowing that we could swap things in and out, but still doing the actual mix, within that. So I think that's like really important distinction.
Yeah,
we did get another question too.
Oh,
yeah.
And I'm sorry, Brian.
I love.
Oh no, just the last thought on those templates,
Mm-hmm.
and I realize this. Maybe I'm being extra salty today, but it's like I mean it only in a positive, loving way. Where sometimes we don't need to mince words about stuff. Like a template, if you're buying a mix template, there's one reason probably to buy it, and that is to gain an understanding of how somebody else has an approach. I can see that as a reasonable, choice of doing something like that. But anything else, you're not mixing, and you're cheating yourself. You're not only cheating the process, you're cheating yourself.
Yeah.
And you are limiting your opportunities to learn and to get better at doing what you do the way your sensibilities are. And it's like, again, it's transactional, it's swiping, it's, oh, cool, I can just throw this thing on there and I don't have to do the work. If I want to study the Brower technique, cool, I could buy that template and take a look at it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use it, and I might be like, oh, that's interesting. That's a different approach that I hadn't thought about, or I kind of get fully, what he's talking about, but I'm not going to like throw tracks on there and start a project for somebody's a paying client. Like, no way. But yeah, don't cheat yourself.
Yeah,
into buying that stuff.
Great learning experiences to understand, like how does somebody get something like this? Yeah, oh great.
Oh, I only said this guy said presets are also bad. I will say this: presets on effects. If somebody took time to have like a good description of it, like space echoes, or there's one that was on like the H3000. It was like something crystallizer. And it actually, like, when I heard it, it's like, yeah, that sounds whatever, like, what's a crystallizer, right? Like,
yeah, whatever that is.
yeah, but like, sometimes, like, if the preset has, like, a good name, even, like, my favorite 480L preset number 1, large haul number 1.
Yes.
It's, you know what, it sounds like a large haul, and thank you for labeling that. Now, I'll go in and tweak it, for sure. But yeah, sometimes those presets are terrible, and it's like, super boom-bastic kick. And then you go and it's like high passed at 400. You're like, well, that's not a super boombastic kick. You lied to me. Yeah, you always got to listen. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. You said the other questions.
Yeah, we got another question from Jeff, which I think that this is a really good one. He says, what's y'all's process on carving out space on a 2-track master track for vocals to sit? I'm with you, man. Be honest.
Different ways. One is side chaining. Using side chaining a little bit, doing a little bit of EQ and then doing a little bit of side chain. But I don't deal a lot with 2 tracks, so I kind of leave that maybe in your guys' hands.
Yeah, man, that's always I think, I mean, Rob, you've talked about this before, and I'm with you. It's like, God, if you don't have to, that's the best way. But yeah, I think side chaining some stuff. Especially some of the plugin alliance things like that. You've got like that Maselec master desk where you have like the monoizer
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, or you can MS some of the stuff and trying to I especially if it's like oftentimes two track is going to be generally in the hip hop realm. If I can keep the kick, snare, bass elements, that mono stuff in the center, if I can keep that where it is, push the sides out,
Mm-hmm.
and then be able to treat them differently. I think that's a way of being able to get that vocal or the whatever melodic or lead part to be able to sit in there. There's other dynamic EQ kind of things, but probably mid-siding it and doing like the monoizer type of a setup might be helpful as a tool to gain separation. Otherwise, you're just like tossing something on top of something. Especially if it's already been mastered.
Right.
The YouTube beats or BeatStar stuff. Like,
I mean,
I've seen people use expanders and things like that and try to to make more dynamics of it, then split it out, and it's like it's a process. Not a really good one. I mean, people do it, but
yeah,
it's always extra work.
Most people know my stance on this. I'm going to urge you to just go get the track outs because
Yeah.
walking backwards just really shouldn't be the option. And like, I don't even think any engineers back in the day would even allow that. Like, we're going to retrack it. We're going to figure out how to, get it done. But I'm going to play devil's advocate, and if there is a plugin out there that helps a lot, it's Track Spacer. I don't know if.
Oh yeah, I forget about that one now.
Yeah, Track Spacer. It's exactly what Isaac said. It just kind of does it for you. You could pinpoint the mid range and do like a side chaining effect that it kind of dips out, and it's really, really good at that. But I mean, you're not going to get as good of results as if you were to just get the track outs, and I urge everyone to do that. Like, do it right from the beginning, does
BeatStars allow you to buy, because I've never done it before, do they allow you to buy stems?
They do, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go back and get the track outs. Like, most producers offer them, and it might be difficult if you're getting your beats off of YouTube to track down the producer, but yeah, like, I mean, there's ways to do it, but I mean, I want to go back to, like, because Isaac and we were all talking about, like, how sometimes you could just level a track and it's already mixed, right?
Right.
And that's because they did it right from the source. They did it right from the beginning. And so, to me, that's always going to be my stance on things. Let's get it right from the start, and if you could manage that, then, we could avoid all, this track spacer and side chaining and weird mid-side EQ, and like sometimes that stuff just sounds weird to me. It's like, just I'm in the mindset of this, like, we're trying to convince the human ear that they're listening to something realistic,
Right.
And oftentimes when I hear these like imagers and these weird like pumping effects and I'm just like, that just doesn't sound right to me. I'm not convinced. That's what I always tell myself. So yeah.
That's there's lots of studies that are out there, sort of in the with psychoacoustics and things like this, that just what the human ear naturally gravitates towards, and it is like trying to make things, even synthetic things, have some degree of a natural sound or sounding the way you think that it should sound. I mean, people that are in the film scoring world and sound effects world of like, okay, well, I'm doing an outer space thing. Nobody's actually heard outer space because you can't hear outer space. But it's like, we all have this understanding of what outer space sounds like, probably from watching a bunch of sci-fi movies. And so you make that sound like that thing. If you're doing Foley work and, somebody's walking across a gravel parking lot, we've all naturally heard that. So you're making the sound like it's supposed to sound.
Yeah.
That's put that on a bumper sticker. Make it sound the way it's supposed to sound, and then it'll sound good. it's gooder.
What? Oh, my bad. If you're not.
No, but just, yeah, it's like it's same thing with the when you've already got the stuff, and then you have to manipulate a 2-track,
Yeah.
and it's probably going to have degrading effects on let's say maybe the 2-track was actually sounding okay. You're gonna have to lose some of that in order to make that space,
Exactly.
and then you're like, okay, then you just get like diminishing returns,
Totally.
off of the stuff.
Yeah, like Christian Stonehouse, a guy I talk about often. I've done hundreds of tracks with him. He's, if you will, my mentor, the guy that I came up with, and probably the best producer and engineer I've ever worked side by side with. But I would send him records from back in the day that I would do, and he would just literally say, "I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced."
Wow.
And he would just leave it at that. And like he would do this to me a lot, and I loved it because I'm like, okay, well, I got to get back to the drawing board. And then he would always give me those. He's like, you got to convince my ear that I'm hearing something in real life.
Right.
He's like, you hear those hi-hats, they sound all washed out, and like, what scenario would they be that distorted, and
Right.
that washed out in the mix, and made me think super deep on how would this sound in real life. And so I ask myself that question when I'm mixing all the time. It's like, is that how I'd perceive it in real life? And sometimes we're making it up. Like you said, I think your space analogy is perfect.
Yeah.
None of us been there. We don't really know what it would sound like, right? But
Right.
there is an absolute definitive, like, that sounds off or that's good. You know what I mean? And so we just got to get to that point.
Hey, asked a question about interfaces earlier.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
What was it?
It says, what interface do you guys recommend as a starter, or how many inputs and outputs should I use? I guess he's trying to do some outboard gear.
Oh.
There's so many. I would always go with Apollo. I just think Apollo is great for, at least like affordable. It's great for routing. You can typically route quite a bit of outboard gear into it, so that's something I would look into.
Yeah.
As far as how many ins and outs, that's completely up to you on what you think you're going to need as far as in and outs. I mean, in my space, I have 16 in and outs. So,
yeah, I think that's I wouldn't buy anything cheap.
Yeah.
And I know that oftentimes that's not the answer that somebody wants to hear. And also doesn't mean you need to buy super top end stuff. I mean, you definitely, as a starter, like a couple of mic pre's, separate outputs. So you've got your monitor outs, and then you have like main outs. So where you could have the possibility of routing if you needed to. But avoid like the Temu kind of stuff, buy from sort of trusted names. A 2i2, that's fine. The little Audient ones, they're fine. The old like Apogee, duets, they're fine. A Volt is fine. If you can get the into the X series, like what's the one that's not the X4, but it's got like 2 mic ins.
The Twin X?
Yeah, the Twin. Yeah. Something like that. Like, if you can't afford that, save your money, and literally go off your core audio and use your headphones for the time being. Just save your money until you can get something, because if you buy something super cheap, it's probably going to give you more headaches than that initial cost savings was worth. And maybe that's like, that's my sort of my practical dad advice.
yeah.
Save your pennies, and then buy something that has a track record of reliability. And even those 2i2, those little Scarlett guys, they're totally fine, and they are reliable, and it actually has a metal chassis, a metal casing. It's not made out of plastic, so you can throw it in your backpack and go remote if you need to, and not have to worry that it's so fragile. But yeah, definitely, like, don't go too cheap. And also, like, if you think you're going to save money by buying something that's used, when we're in this digital era, I mean, we're in it, not when we're in it, but like some of the older devices, you know, you got to double check to make sure that you can still get drivers for them. I mean, you get some stuff that has like, what's the old, the square USB?
USB-B.
Yeah, you know, all right, well, can you even get the correct adapters? Does your, you know, if you're on a laptop, if you're going USB-C or Thunderbolt, does that port actually support, you know, older inputs and that kind of thing? Just like double check on that. You think, oh, I could just buy a used something or other. Yes, you can. And odds are it probably works, but there's also a good chance that it might not, or you'll buy it. And then, I mean, Apple and everybody else is like, oh yeah, but we don't support that anymore.
Hey guys,
You know,
this engineer Robert Venable, this guy, he's currently mixing stuff for Kelly Clarkson.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah, he works on the Kelly Clarkson show.
I have to do a
My
follow.
buddy is the drum. My buddy Lester drums for Kelly Clarkson on that show as well. But Robert's you gotta follow that guy. That guy,
I just did. Look at that.
he is legit. He may not post a whole bunch, but he's legit.
That's because he's working on top secret stuff.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
I know. Funny side note, like I know a few people that are in like actual, you know, top secret audio things,
Right.
like cleaning stuff and all that strange world. That'd be a good conversation to get somebody like completely redacted face. You know, you want to talk about like, you know, doing crazy stuff with RXing and cedar systems and denoising things in order to make a, you know, some odd signal intelligible to policymakers and that kind of stuff. Like that's a crazy world that you just said. All right, tangent, but like
That's what. That's
top
what
secret audio, like the forensic audio.
Mm-hmm.
That's all, man. That's a crazy world.
Yeah, that's what Dan does, dude. And I've sat in on some of. I'm like blown away on what the capabilities of it, like the noise removal stuff.
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, it's bonkers.
It really will blow your mind. It's like there's like levels to this.
Oh
I say it all the time, and just layers of the levels. And like, I actually worked with a studio out in UK. I don't remember the name of it, and they edited some vocals of a female singer I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
Sent it back to me, and I was like, "What in the Jedi mind trick did you guys do to these?" Like,
I recut them.
dude, I was like, "You guys
They used AI.
You know, and I was struggling with it, and I just like, yeah, they did some sort of noise removal and tuning. I don't know, whatever dark art side of the mixing top secret world that is, and
Yeah, it's definitely the black arts. It's the Department of Smoke and Mirrors.
it totally is. Dude.
RTR is asking, did any of you guys go to school for audio engineering?
I did a little bit, but I didn't graduate, so it doesn't count.
No, it's a regular music school, as a percussion, performance, and then the rest of the stuff I sort of interned and started learning on the ground, and then just private study. I ended up like teaching in an audio school, but yeah, I never actually went to a formal thing. I had a couple cool classes. Like I had a couple MIDI classes, and that's sort of like my first foray into any like electronic music and understanding how equipment is put together. And, that was like that first bit. And then like arranging classes, and then doing things in like at the, old finale versions, and sort of learning that bit. And then, well, it's got to be listened to through speakers. How does it get to the speakers? How do we actually record this, and take a composition? It's sort of building organically that way. But yeah, short answer, no.
I went to Miracosta College in California, but at that time it was just wasn't a certificated program or anything like that, and it was for a semester, and that's where I got introduced to Pro Tools. It was like back in '94. So we were learning on Alesis ADATs.
Yeah.
They were like, "This is the wave of the future right here, the Alesis ADAT.
Yeah.
This is going to take over the studio world." And I was like, yo, what's that computer software over there? And they're like, that's not going to make it. That's just for, radio editing and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm going to go learn that.
Smart man. Smart man.
Nah, man, it's that funny. It's like, go watch that documentary about Sound City.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
how long it would take them. They'd put like a track, into the computer and like, come back 6 hours later and one track was rendered, But, yeah, there's a lot of people that were like that,
You have to do an offline bounce, and your offline bounce took forever to bounce.
Yeah.
Or not offline, it was real time. They were real time bounces. It took forever for real time.
Oh, yeah, you got to listen to the whole song.
Yep.
Get to the end and you hear a little clip, like, we got to redo this.
So asking what I learned from a school better than audio visual. That's what AV is. Yeah.
I think experience is the king of all teachers, but school build a solid foundation. You just don't want to skip that.
You just want to go to the right one. CRAS. That's good. Even as people dunk on like Full Sail, like it's what you get out of it.
On Full Sail.
Yeah, I've had to fire a couple Full Sail grads. Omega, that's the one that's out here on the East Coast. That's solid. CRAS, that's a big one.
Right.
And even if there's some community colleges that have some pretty good programs as well. There's no substitution, and it's when I worked at Omega, and I always wanted to make sure I gave the students as much value as I possibly could, because I knew at the end of the day, like if I'm hiring, I don't give a shit about your Pro Tools certification. I don't care. And no one's ever asked me for mine. I've mixed thousands of records. No one's ever said, are you Pro Tools, 300 certified? Like, nobody cares. Now, you're going to learn a lot by going through that certification process. But if your aim is to get the certs, you're doing it for the wrong reason. Like, the certification should be a validation of the knowledge. Go for the knowledge. Go so you can go into any situation and be fluent on that DAW and learning all the other ones. But if you can get a combo of that, and even that's why maybe some of the community college stuff, or even I've seen like I'm in Fairfax County, Virginia. It's one of the largest counties in the U.S. and like there's all kinds of adult education stuff, and you'll look through the things, and I can go learn how to play guitar. There's like somebody that's teaching music production just as like a class I can take without even being in a school. So having some of that, but as you're saying, like go out and do gigs, go save $1,000 instead of financing, $100K for some school, go spend $5,000, get a laptop, get an interface, get some mics, go record a bunch of shitty bands. You're going to learn so much in that process. Go work in a club, go have people scream at you because the monitor mixes are trash, and you're going to be like, you're going to fix that real quick. I mean, there's just getting your hands on gear, and it's, those studio internships, they're not available anymore. Big studios aren't available anymore. Like, Greasy was like the last guy to get an internship at East West, don't think that that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Go do AV, like corporate AV stuff.
This is like, you could even
go do the work.
And I love that you're saying like, spending money for school, go buy some equipment and record people, right? You could also take some of that money and go rent out a bigger studio with an engineer in it and just overshadow them, ask them questions. Like, I mean, in fact, I
pay them for their time.
Yeah, dude. And I built a serious relationship with an engineer out here by doing that. I went to him multiple times cutting records, and he was like, man, I really like your music. And what do you do? And like, we got to talking, exchanged numbers. Now we're really good friends. He comes to my studio. I built that relationship based on hiring him in the beginning.
Yeah.
I learned a ton from this guy. He has a killer warehouse studio with like 4 studios in it. He teaches school out here. And, it came from me hiring him in the beginning.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, that's what I've been trying to, even do here on TikTok is like, listen, I'll mix a song for you for free and give you the session so you can see what I'm doing.
For
So you can
free?
learn. Well, I'm doing one song. I'm trying to help people out, man.
I love it, dude.
So, hey man, he said he'd mix your record for free. He promised.
Not the record, a song.
Oh,
Flood his email. Let's get 41 mixes to him today.
It's a
Then you get the
45
whole
second
session, you
song.
get to learn from the session, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Actually, you know what, Isaac? Do you want to just like go in detail about like what you're doing? So for anybody in the chat, could reach out to you.
Yeah. So once a month, what I do is I just have artists submit to me, and I'll go through and pick one artist out of that submission. And what I try to do is I try to do lives where I take that song and I'll take you through my entire process. What I'm thinking, what I'm hearing, how I approach certain things, that kind of thing. But then at the end of it, you get a song that's mixed and finished. And then you'll get the Pro Tools session. So if you don't have Pro Tools, I'd recommend you getting something like that or some kind of DAW. Or I can save it in a, AAF format, which I think transfers between like Logic and all the other sessions. But if you get Pro Tools, then you get to see exactly what I'm doing. For a while there, I think Pro Tools was even doing a free version. I don't know if they do the free version anymore. But you'd be able to get to see what the routing looks like, all that kind of stuff. But then you get to take part in the actual mixing process and how I do it. So, but yeah, so the thing is just submit to my email, kingdomcomestudio@gmail.com. It's in my bio. But yeah, once a month, I just try to go through a submission, pick one artist, and we'll attack it. So yeah, that's it.
Super cool, dude. I think that's awesome you're doing that.
I was going to ask you guys, like, I think maybe the space is a little full of people doing mix critiques, like Zach Primrose does all that, and his are good. I love his approach. He's like, dude, I can't even listen to this. It's all distorted, But
you got too much low end, or you got no low end.
Yeah, it's like, dude, tune the guitars,
Yeah.
Do you guys find like there's any value in that? I've been kind of thinking about maybe offering that, not so much for content, but as like a private mix consultation for people like.
Well, I mean, it's just like what Rob said, right? He hired an engineer to, to gain knowledge and stuff like that. I think that works.
Yeah, it's one of those like, it's like as any product that you have, that you have to put that out into a space. There's a level of effort going into it that in order to promote it to get a return on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you want to offer for free or not. Just an idea that I was toying with.
Let me play devil's advocate real quick.
Please.
And you might remember, Brian, when I did music reviews back in the day. So I got roped into doing that for like a year. And I want to say I got roped into it because I did.
Yeah.
Through my experience of that, you got to get into the weeds. So what I would suggest, right, is don't do anything online, but like if you're going to do it, like get a one-on-one with these people, because like,
I agree. I don't want to do it for content.
Yeah, dude. And it's so difficult to listen to a mix and be like, yeah, I know what your issue is. Because I need to know, okay, how'd you record this, first of all, right? Like, where are you getting your production from? Did you have the track outs? Like, there's just so many questions that are involved in, like, helping people with, like, actual direction with their mixes, And so, I don't know, though, like, there's definitely a value in it, like, 100%. But like when it comes to like at least the music reviews that I see and whatnot,
I think I want to stay away from that. I don't want to be like, and it's also, man, as much as like I might have an internal monologue or think some other things are funny, and I don't want to also like I want to be honest. And if you send something and like, hey, we'll do a live and listen to your thing, and man, if it's like
that's
a shit sandwich, I'm gonna tell you that it is, and I don't want to do that.
That's why I say make a submission, and I'm gonna pick.
That's what I like about yours is you get to listen to it, and you actually get the session, and you're like, so this is like a whole different ballgame because now you're like, look, I got the snare here,
Yeah.
This is where you got to like get it to sit right, and so it's just like there's massive value in these critiques. I know this.
Well, I mean, let's ask the audience. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think there's value to you if for seeing that type of stuff, that type of material coming from
versus like a one-on-one type of consultation. Like exact, he'll do it, and he's doing it for free because he's getting the content out of it, you know. But
and no, and I love it. I think that's great, Isaac. Let's get the chat involved. So we do have a yes. Like, would y'all find more value in doing like a more in-depth critique, or do you find value in like just the music reviews as they're listening to your music?
So Jesse says it's helpful.
I think it's helpful.
Eric says yeah.
Better.
It's valuable when criticism is constructive. One-on-one is much better. Cool.
Oh no!
And there's no right or wrong. I mean, be honest with us, guys. We want to know. We want to know for real.
I mean, that might be something that could be interesting to set up for, like, you know, carve out, you know, 10 minutes on an episode, and we listen to a track. You know, somebody can throw it up, you know, like throw it up on a 2-track view, and you could look at some things and say, okay, well, I hear what you're going for. Here's what I think is working. Here's areas to improve. And I think always keeping it constructive, even though, like, you know, we're all just, you know, apes at the end of the day. You're just like, rah! But we
Uh-oh. We lost you, Brian.
like, well, here's some problem areas that we see. Oh, sorry about that. Here's some problem areas. You know, I think that could be positive, you know. So especially if we can stream it, but that's all. Then you get into things that's like, you have to have if you're a mixer and it's not your song, you know.
Yeah.
You have to have like written authorization from the artist or the copyright holder. We get into a lot of that kind of area as well. It can't be released. All those sort of
that's all the
legalities
stuff that I go through with people. It's like, okay, it's not been released. It's not you. You know, I have to have written consent that says that I can stream it. All that kind of stuff to make sure.
Yeah, you know what? Like, and thinking about it, right? Like someone said, sometimes the artist just wants you to hear their music. And this is very true. This really happened to me.
Looking for exposure.
Yeah, and it manifested into this whole thing where I was just listening to people's music. So I had to back away from that because I'm like, I can't even get my job done because I'm like, I've listened to like 50 songs today and I am not motivated to do my music. Which is faded away from it, but I'm probably completely wrong about this. I think that there is absolute like value regardless on if you're going to do just music reviews or a one-on-one. I think there's probably value in both of those.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to give it some thought, you know, maybe as something, and like, you know, if I get people in my DM stuff all the time. Hey, will you listen to this? Hey, will you listen to that? And I kind of like check out their page, and like if it looks like you're already on the right path, I think that's like somebody that I'd want to listen to. If, you know, you're not on the right path or it looks like you're not serious about it, I don't know how helpful I could be. I don't really want to take my time also to be like, yep, there's another person that didn't record something properly. Yeah, your vocals are out of tune. Like,
that's what happened to me. It was just
it's like I don't, you know.
Yeah, it was like Band Lab recorded on their headphones that you got on right now.
Yeah,
you know, and I'm like, do you really want my critique?
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, and it's not because I don't ever want to discourage people.
Right.
My first track sucked. Like,
totally. Oh yeah, dude, hot trash.
And so like,
I still have some somewhere.
Me too. And like, that's the thing is like, I understand like how hard you got to work at things and how long it takes to get good. And so I leave all kinds of room for that, you know? But you can almost see who's trying to take it serious and who isn't.
Yeah. And anybody out there, like, feel free, give me a follow and shoot me a message. And, you know, if it looks like you're on like a path towards you're serious about what you're doing, I'm happy to take a listen and give you like a short amount of feedback. If it's something that like you want like detailed notes, you know, we can sort of negotiate a price because that takes time. It's funny you're saying like it takes your time, right? And I realized the other day, like it's like, man, I haven't put out any posts in a while. I've been like ridiculously busy.
Working.
Like I've been doing, I'm either playing or mixing something nearly every day. And I was like, God, I really, you know, you build a little momentum and then you start like, oh, I got to put out some content. And like I'm putting out content and that's actually interrupting me working as a professional, you know, mixer and musician. But yeah, it's a pretty big balance.
That's what it is.
You know, even I saw one of your posts. I think it was in response to Shane. You know, like what do you do in your
Oh yeah,
for your you know?
I was trying to be really nice.
And you know, like you know, you don't only just do this, right? You do all the sorts of other stuff, live sound, drumming. I mean, I'm in the same boat. Like, you know, tomorrow I'm on a film set. You know,
Right.
you know, boom operating, doing sound mixing for a film.
Dude, those are cool gigs.
Those are
Those are
fun.
awesome gigs.
It's like that's behind the
thing
scenes,
I
like you get to
about
see
it
how
is
it's
I'm not
done.
stuck inside of a room, just
Yeah.
behind a desk anymore. I'm actually out interacting with people, you know, talking to these, you know, actors and things like that. But then, you know, voiceover work, doing, you know, for animation, you know, for films, for all sorts of that kind of stuff. So, you know, we try to have our jobs that we normally do, but yeah, we still want to help our community out as well. So, you know, keep in mind, you know, when you are asking people like us, you know, it's not that we want to push you off. It's just we got to take care of our clients as well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's like, you know, if I had, you know, my pure passion, like I would probably just play if I was like totally honest.
Yep.
You know, I've been drumming since I was like 13, you know, and that's always going to be like the first love.
Yeah.
But since that's, you know, I mean, man, that's especially with the family and all that kind of stuff, like that's a pretty tough road. But yeah, being able to do all of those things though, whether it's like not just mixing, but like being able to record, that makes you a better mixer. Being a better mixer makes you a better recordist. Doing live sound, like hearing, oh, how it really sounds like up close and in a weird untreated space or an imperfect space, like that gives you a knowledge base that when you hear something like that on a recording, you're like, I've heard that before. I know how to fix that. I was telling Rob, like, and I really didn't do a ton of corporate AV stuff before. I've just been doing it the past couple of years. Like, that's actually that's of all the areas of audio, unless you're like tracking and mixing at a B or an A level, you're not going to make any more money than by doing corporate audio. You know, doing a big convention with some CEO, you know, with a huge PA and one lav mic, and they're addressing some keynote speech for their latest multi-million-dollar campaign. Your shit better be on. Like, but like working with speech has, even at this seasoned age, like has taught me so much again about like, oh yeah, here are all these other funky characteristics of the human voice, some things that I might have forgotten about. And like, just all those other experiences, like if your passion still is like straight 100% music, those other experiences are only going to make you better. And sitting, you know, in your bedroom crying about how nobody wants you to mix their record, it's because they don't know you. You know, go out and meet people, and you might not be meeting them in like the engineer forums. Go out to a club, you know, go see local bands, you know, yeah, like do the film set stuff. I mean,
that's fun.
If you do a great job capturing that dialogue, like, hey, they're like, hey man, this guy, he was really good on this thing. And like, hey, do you mix? Yeah, I mix. You know, I did a couple corporate jobs where these keynote guys, I mean, these are like, you know, big lawyer people. They're both musicians, you know, just sort of chatting them up. And, you know, cause I had like a Shure sticker like on my road case.
Me too,
Yeah. And the guy's
always
like,
opens up a
oh, you
conversation.
like, you know, they look at you doing the corporate audio stuff and they might not know it. He's like, oh, you do you like mix records? I'm like, yeah, totally. And here's my card. Here's my dot thing, you know.
Mhm.
And it ended up like you're mixing 2 albums for the guy and doing some remote recording. So like, you know, you never know where those opportunities are going to come. But if you only have one skill set that you learned off of a YouTube clip and 5 easy tips, you know, you're probably not going to, you know, last too long in that space. But anyway, old man rant.
It's so true though. Like these are like this. These are the places where you build your relationships, where jobs continue to come to you.
Yeah.
You know, and like I don't know.
You can't plan how it's going to be. You just have. It's like they say. Sorry, so apologies for it.
You're good, man.
It's as they say, luck is the intersection of preparation and opportunity.
Yes.
If you are not prepared, if you do not have a base skill set, a genuine skill set that isn't plug-in oriented, like I understand physically because I've connected a mic to a cable, to a snake, to a patch bay, to a pre, to an interface, to out speakers, you know, you have to be able to do that. But yeah, preparation and opportunity.
You know, like back in the day, like one of the studios. In fact, it was my friend that I was telling you about that I hired, and we became friends, and I kind of helped him build his clientele. We would go to all the shows on Friday and Saturday night that were in downtown Denver. We'd get backstage, we'd get with the promoters, we'd talk to the artists. You guys need a recording studio. We have a professional. We'll do one free session. Why don't you guys come after the show? Just come check it out. And that's like how we built it, you know. And if you're putting yourself in that space and you're prepared, you know, to like do the job that you say you could do,
yeah,
you could build it in abundance. But it's up to you to build that name. You know, like you said, like if you're sitting in your room or whatnot, just waiting for him to come.
Yeah.
No.
And like think about this as when you're asking, say, hey, come back and check out the space. That's a huge thing for you to do, not only commercially speaking, but if you can't deliver the goods, you know, it's like, and you put yourself out there and then you aren't able to, you know, meet like, you can have 100 great records and oftentimes, or like 100 shows with no feedback. And that one show where you forgot to unmute a major vocal mic, or you get a little bit of a squeal in the PA. It's like, who feeds back anymore, right? Like, yeah. But it's like, you know, that's the kind of stuff where you're like, oh, but yeah, I heard him on this one thing, and man, it's feedback everywhere. You know, like those kind of things. Like, if you're going to put yourself out there, you need to be able to deliver at least what you're promising.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Jesse was asking about auto-tune. How do you feel about people who solely use auto-tune to keep them in tune, keep their vocals in tune? It's a tool. And
yeah, if it's done right, like, do it.
Yeah.
There are ways to do it where it sounds natural, or there are ways to use it as as an effect kind of thing. But then she says something here about, but it sounds distorted. Yeah, any pitch correction will always add some type of artifacting to it, depending on how hard you're pushing it. That's why I said there's some ways that you can do it that's kind of light, and so then talent really does have to come into play there. And then
you think?
And then the auto-tune or Melodyne or whatever it is just there to kind of bat it just into places here and there if you want it to be, you know, spot on. But
yeah.
To answer your question quickly, Jesse, yes. I prefer a good singer. Yes.
Yeah.
Me too.
Like,
yeah.
Yes.
And I'll take, you know, we've talked about this before. Like, I'll take a phenomenal performance that might have some slight imperfections any day than a mid performance that's perfectly in tune. You know, and it's like, especially when you tune something and it's perfectly in tune, man, there's if there's nothing left other than it's in tune and you've already chopped it and slid it into, like, man, like, who at that point, like, who cares? Now you just have a lame vocal. Yeah. And that's in tune. Like, I think we've placed such a high value on perfect tuning of things, that we've forgotten that, no, what I want is to feel your soul through the vocal. Like if it's happy, I want to be elated when I just solo the vocal track or any other track for that matter. Like I want to be able to feel what the song is about by listening to every single part.
Imagine Shakira and auto-tune.
Yeah.
I listen to her all the time and I'm like,
Yeah.
that screechy little scream that she does is like, is it even in key? I'm confused, but it sounds so freaking good. It sounds so good.
It's the inhale kind of sound, like David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
It's like I don't even know what it is, but I know that if you tuned it, it would be terrible.
It's a big no. It's a hard.
Yeah. It's like it's better not tuned. Like it doesn't have to be, and that's also like it's robotic, like formulaic kind of thinking. Must tune.
Yeah.
Must EQ. Like maybe it doesn't need it. Did you listen to it? Like why are you tuning it in the first place? Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I'm gonna have to split. I got to run to a
same.
Me too.
But,
Perfect
thank
time.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys are amazing. I love talking with you guys. I love this so much.
Me too. Me too.
People that stayed to watch and stuff like that, thank you so much as well. Thank you for all the questions.
Yes, chat. Don't forget to give Isaac a follow and take him up on his offer. Flood his emails.
Yes.
And then again, Reference Mix Brian extended his reach as well. So please give him a follow. Reach out to him. In terms of the critiques and whatnot. If you were interested in that, and we're going to get back to doing these every Tuesday. So Tuesday 8 a.m. Mountain Time USA. Of course, you always have. But either way, chat. Brian, Isaac, appreciate
you guys.
All right, until next time, everyone.
Bye.
Later.